Generally, you said feminism is neutral.
Here's what actually happened.
This goes like the foundation of all knowledge.
I'm really mad that
what difference does it make, right? What
Stop.
the deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
And to lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong. You're promoting, right?
Ideology is the main tenet of politics, right? This is my ideology.
And so, 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage. The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, they're dead? With a crowbar, you said?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, bringing to you live a UK special debate. Why is it a UK special? Because we're on earlier than normal. Compliments of Craig, of course. He needs his sleep. I've got with me Craig McNeill from FTFE, and of course, Rabbi Israel Horowitz back for more. Tonight, they will be debating, is evolution true? Craig, if you'd like to begin with your opening statement, please.
Hello, thank you for having me again, Sarah. Always a pleasure. Right, tonight's question is evolution true? And honestly, asking that in 2026 is like asking if fire is hot while your trousers are actively on fire. Yes, evolution is true. Not like a religion, not like a personal belief. True like bacteria exists, gravity works, and flat earthers should not be trusted with maps, balloons, or basic geometry. Evolution is change in heritable traits in populations over generations. Genes vary, traits are inherited, mutations happen, selection filters them out, populations split, lineages diverge. That is evolution. Now, before the creationist escape hatch opens, let's define the thing they always pretend nobody defined. Microevolution is change within populations, whereas macroevolution is evolution at or above the species level. Speciation, branching, lineages, new body plans, major transitions, extinction, diversification. They are not different magic spells. Macroevolution is what happens when microevolution keeps happening across time. Split populations and reproductive isolation. Saying I believe in microevolution but not macroevolution is like saying I believe in bricks but walls are atheist propaganda. No, walls are what happens when bricks keep stacking. So let's start with speciation, because speciation is macroevolution by definition. Darwin's finches are not just some birds changed a bit. On Daphne Major in the Galapagos during a drought, the food supply changed. Soft seeds became scarce, harder seeds remained. Birds with deeper, stronger beaks survived better and reproduced more. The average beak depth shifted measurably from about 9.2 millimeters to about 9.7 millimeters. That is natural selection measured in the wild. Then we get the big bird lineage. A finch from one species mated with a local finch, and their descendants formed a distinct lineage with different beaks, different song, and mating mostly within their own group. That is reproductive isolation forming. That is the doorway to speciation. And if the response is, but it's still a finch, yes, genius, that's how descent works. Evolution does not say a finch gives birth to a crocodile. Descendants remain part of their ancestral group, because humans are still apes, whales are still mammals, birds are still dinosaurs, finches remain birds. That is not a problem for evolution. That is what evolution predicts. Next, bacteria. Bacteria are a nightmare for evolution deniers because they reproduce quickly, mutate quickly, and they do not care what anyone's favorite Bronze Age text says. In the mega plate experiment, bacteria were placed on a huge plate with increasing antibiotic concentrations. They spread until they hit a zone they couldn't survive. Then resistant mutants appeared, expanded, hit the next stronger zone, and adapted again. Step by step, lineages evolved resistance to conditions that killed their ancestors. That is evolution you can watch with your own eyes in a lab. Not just adaptation. Adaptation is evolution. That is literally the mechanism. Saying that's just adaptation is like watching someone score a goal and saying that's not football, it's just kicking a ball into a net. Yes, that's the thing. Then we have Lenski's long-term E. coli experiment. 12 populations of E. coli started from the same ancestor, evolving for tens of thousands of generations. Samples frozen along the way so scientists can revive their ancestors and compare them directly with their descendants. Evolution with save files. One lineage evolved the ability to use citrate in oxygen-rich conditions. The ancestor could not do that in that environment. The descendant could. That is a new, useful metabolic function arising through mutation, contingency, and selection. Not magic, not design, not bacteria joining an atheist book club. Evolution. Let's go bigger, because apparently some people need evolution to walk in wearing a name badge that says, "Hello, I am macroevolution." Paul Linella is a brilliant example. Most photosynthetic eukaryotes trace their plastids back to one ancient endosymbiotic event. A cell took in a cyanobacterium, and over deep time, that became a photosynthetic organelle. Paul Linella did something similar independently. Much later, a heterophobic amoeba acquired a cyanobacterium-like endosymbiote that became a permanent photosynthetic compartment called a chromatophore. That is a major evolutionary transition. A once-free living bacterium becomes an integrated photosynthetic part of another organism. That is not a beak got bigger. That's huge. And if someone says that's not evolution, then exactly what is it? A cell gained a permanent photosynthetic compartment through endosymbiosis and integration. If that doesn't count, nothing counts, because you are no longer asking for evidence. You are asking reality to beg for your approval. Now animals and photosynthesis. There are animals like some sea slugs that use stolen chloroplasts from algae. That's called kleptoplasty. They eat algae and retain the chloroplast, allowing photosynthesis to continue, contribute to their energy. To be clear, I'm not claiming a rabbit turned into a sunflower, because unlike creationists, I do not need to lie to make my argument work. But it does show how biology can blur the neat little boxes that people invent. Animals can form relationships with photosynthetic machinery. Organisms can acquire functions through symbiosis, and evolution is messy, brilliant, and absolutely not limited by the imagination of someone whose entire argument is nuh-uh. Then there is novo multicellularity. In snowflake yeast experiments, single-celled yeast evolved multicellular clusters under selection. They didn't just clump randomly, they formed heritable multicellular structures reproduced as clusters and evolved traits that made the group function better. Later work showed these clusters could evolve to larger macroscopic multicellular forms over hundreds of selection cycles. That matters because multicellularity is one of the big transitions in life's history. Single cells becoming cooperative groups, groups becoming units of selection, and cells beginning to specialize. And we can drive the early stages of that in the lab. So again, if the objection is macro can't happen, when we have a problem, because speciation happens, major metabolic novelty happens, endosymbiosis happens, multicellularity can evolve, reproductive isolation forms, genomes change, and lineages branch. So what exactly is being denied? Not evolution, because the evidence is right there. What is being denied normally is the conclusion, because some people walked into the debate with the answer already written in crayon. So let's quickly deal with the God argument, but God could have done it. Sure, God could have done anything. God could have created me 5 minutes ago with fake memories, a beard, and a concerning addiction to mocking flat earthers and doing push-ups. But could have is not evidence. Science deals with mechanisms, predictions, tests, and evidence. If your claim is God used evolution, fine. Lots of religious people accept evolution, no problem. But if your claim is evolution is false because my interpretation of God says so, then your issue is not with me, it's with biology and genetics and fossils and medicine and agriculture and every antibiotic-resistant infection currently laughing at us from a petri dish. You don't get to defeat observed science by pointing at a book and shouting, "My God." That is not an argument, it's a comfort blank. So tonight, every time the objection is, "That's only micro," I'm going to ask what stops it. Every time the objection is, "That's still a bird," I'm going to say, "Yes, nested ancestry, well done." Every time the objection is, "That's just adaptation," I'm going to say, "Adaptation is evolution, you just joined my side." And every time the objection is, "But God," I'm going to say, "Show the mechanism." Because this debate is not about whether someone can imagine an alternative. It's about what the evidence shows. And the evidence shows evolution. In wild finches, bacteria, E. coli, reproductive isolation, endosymbiosis, multicellularity, genetics, fossils, in the entire nested pattern of life on Earth. So is evolution true? Yes. Obviously, yes. Painfully, yes. So yes, that denying it now is like arguing Wi-Fi is witchcraft because you can't see the internet juice. Evolution is not waiting for Israel Horowitz to give it permission to be real. It is happening. We can measure it. We can test it. We can watch it and we can predict it. And if your best response is, but that doesn't count, then the problem is not evolution. The problem is that your argument has gone extinct.
Thank you so much, Craig. I appreciate your opening. Israel, to you, please.
All right, awesome. So, yes, nice to meet you guys. And I suspect we may not have as many disagreements as you think, because first of all, the form of evolution that you're describing is observable, as you say, and clearly evolution is a fact of life. We can even see that on a character level, on a personal level in your own life. People evolve, things evolve, whether at the bacterial level and in all ways. So I definitely wouldn't deny the fact that evolution exists. But, you know, the problem is that we're having a truth discussion, a discussion about truth. And evolutionary biologists very often extrapolate the existence of evolution in reality to say that that accounts for the creation of existence. And for, you know, obviously you're a secular scientist. I believe you're secular. I don't want to misconstrue your position, but I've seen you debate secular humanism as the basis for how you think society should be run. So, you know, you're a secular scientist. I'm a religious rabbi. So we're obviously going to have two different perspectives. And I think, you know, in a lot of ways, the conversation is mutually exclusive because we're concerned with different things. While you're concerned with exactly how bacteria evolves, I'm concerned with the origins of existence and the power beyond us that put us here and actually caused all of this to come into motion to begin with. So I'm going to try to just explain my perspective to you because I'm concerned with different things than you are. That's why I don't feel the need to deny most of the things that you said. But I'm concerned with meaning. I'm concerned with truth. And that's why I think this question of truth is very interesting, because I believe truly that truth is defined by God. And when I say God, I mean that power who is beyond us, who knows everything, who can understand everything, who is all knowing and all powerful. Us human beings, which is what science is ultimately in the final analysis, it is the human understanding of existence, human observance of existence. That is entirely limited in every single way. So if we were going to go down to what is the truth is what God says. And it strikes me that for an atheist scientist to say that all of existence evolved from some cells billions of years ago, for a scientist to talk about what happened billions of years ago in the formation of the universe is like a religious person talking about the afterlife, right? Both of those things are about the unknown, theorizing about what could possibly be in another realm and another time based off of the information that we have right now. But ultimately, it's not actually provable that all of existence came to being because of evolution. In fact, the theory of evolution assumes that there is no higher power acting upon it, because you're trying to justify how all of existence could come into being without a higher power being involved. And as you said, if God were involved, then anything is possible. So yes, it's true that there are religious people that try to make evolution fit with the biblical account, and that's fine. You know, I think there are ways to make that fit together. People read the Genesis creation story either as a literary account or each single day to describe eras of millions of years. But that's really only necessary if you are completely sold on the fact that reality could have only come into existence through billions and trillions of years of things evolving without any external force acting upon it to order things and put them into motion and actually create the design that is there. Now, with regards to the truth question, I will quote to you the book of Numbers 15:39. And the book of Numbers says that you shall not pursue after your heart and after your eyes, which you stray after them. Now, this is God telling us that though you may think that your eyes and your heart and your feelings, your understandings of existence can define existence correctly, you as a human being are entirely and utterly extremely limited. And it is the hubris on a human being to say that they know what happened for the past 10 billion years, I think is completely absurd And it really is just as big of a faith claim as believing that God created all this. I think it's an even bigger faith claim to say that all of this that we see, that we experience, the gravity of existence, the beauty, the perfection of existence, all came about without a creator, without a God who's actually acting upon this. So again, I believe in God, and I believe that God is behind this. And to the point of observation, science is based off of human observation. Your ability to experience things and see things and observe them is not entirely discredited by the Bible as being the basis for belief and truth. So, for example, you can look at Deuteronomy 4, 35 through 39. Deuteronomy 4:35 through 49 says, "You have been shown to know that Yahweh is God; there is no other besides Him, because He called out to you from heaven. He disciplined you with His voice and showed you His great fire upon the earth, and you heard His voice speaking from the midst of the fire. And because God loved your ancestors, He took you out of slavery in Egypt, and He will bring you to the promised land. Now you should know today and return it to your heart that Yahweh is God on heaven above and on earth below. There is no other." Right? So the knowledge described here is related to human observation. And God is saying, because you have literally seen this and experienced it, this should be a basis for your belief and your faith. Now, have you observed the past 10,000 years of existence? Have you observed the past 10 billion years of existence? To conclude that all of reality evolved through the process of evolution, that's the only fact of reality that's at play in order to make things come about. I think that's really the problem that I have here, because I believe it's actually a lot more reasonable to say that, judging by the complexity and the grandeur of existence, that God is the primary moving force behind existence. And yes, if evolution exists as an aspect of reality, to the extent that that's undeniable, sure, that's undeniable. But to say that all of this came about through evolution and evolution alone, I think is where I'll definitely have the problem. And again, just to finish out on my point of faith and the fact that I'm coming from a place of faith, you have Genesis 15:6, where God tells Abraham, "Because you believed in me, I will consider that righteousness." So true righteousness is judged by faith. Truth is determined by God. And when we speak of matters of the unknown, like what happened for billions of years, I don't think that it's wise for us to conclude that we know how it happened, or to conclude that it wasn't a higher power that actually brought this all into existence.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Israel. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, both Craig and Israel are dual streaming over on their channel. So please be sure to go subscribe, like, share, and of course, send them all of your money. Also, we will get through our debate. We will move into closing statements. And then, of course, we will read and respond to your kind super chats. And then we will open up the panel. So if you have a question or comment to either of the gentlemen, you will be able to join in the panel and ask your question to them. Did I have any? I think that was it. All right, gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Israel, thank you for joining. I think you may have come to the wrong debate, my friend, because you're conflating the formation of the universe and abiogenesis with evolution. Evolution says nothing about how existence came into being or how life started. That's not the question of the debate. The prompt for the debate is evolution true? And you've just conceded the debate by admitting that you don't disagree with the things that I've said. I really don't care what the Bible said or what you think God said. God could have created evolution. So, if possible, I just would really like you to stick to the topic of the debate, which is not the creation of the universe, which is not where we all came from. It's, is evolution true? And I'm pretty sure you've already conceded that fact.
Well, again, I said, if you, by evolution, you mean what we're experiencing in the present moment, where we can observe things evolving and changing on a microbial level, again, I would say even a character level, at all levels in existence, evolution is clearly a factual aspect of existence. But if you say that evolution is what accounts for everything that we see, I think that's where I have the problem. Because, you don't. So you don't.
I don't say that it accounts for everything I see. It accounts for adaptation in biological life. I really think you're, with all due respect, my friend, I think you're confused about what evolution is, because you're not talking about evolution. You seem to be talking about the creation of the universe and where we came from and, how did life start? Evolution doesn't even attempt to answer those questions. Evolution is simple. It is adaptation to environmental pressures that causes changes over generations.
Yet
you say
evolution,
that happens. So what's the debate about?
Well, because evolution, I mean, the way that it's taught, unless you have a different way of understanding evolution, the way that it's taught is by using terms like millions, trillions, billions of years. Now, the reason why we have to use those vast numbers is because evolution leaves out the prospect of a God acting upon existence. And if God said, so again, where does the million and trillion and billion years come from? If
God could have created the universe millions and trillions and billions of, well, not trillions, no one says trillions, billions of years at the most. I mean, Earth's been around for less than 5 billion years, but nothing about evolution precludes God. God could have made evolution be a thing. And, we don't say that evolution of humans is over billions of years, for instance. We trace back our lineage hundreds and millions of years. You keep going back to what evolution says, no God, but no, it doesn't. I really honestly think that you've come to the wrong debate.
Oh, let me ask. So evolution, Craig, you're talking about the entire timeline of evolution from like start day to today, correct?
I'm talking about the mechanisms behind evolution. The fact that lineages change and heritable traits get passed on, and species can separate and become different to how they were before, which we can literally see happen in the lab. And if it happens over a small amount of time, then it can also happen over a large amount of time.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just really confused because right at the beginning, Israel agreed that evolution is a thing. So we both agree that evolution is true.
So you're talking about the mechanism, but I think he's agreeable to the mechanism, but it's not a mechanism that came to fruition on its own. I think Israel would say that the mechanism in itself is not just evolution as it stands. I think he's saying that came from God, right?
I'm making no claims about where the mechanism came from, about what put it in but not in place. I'm just saying the mechanism exists.
Let me ask this, because I think that's I'm going to get hung up there too. So, Craig, what would be the opposition outside of God? What would be the opposition stance on evolution not being true?
That there is no adaptation to environmental pressures. There is no heritable traits being passed on. I mean, we need to define what evolution is, and evolution is heritable traits being passed on to your descendants. That's it. That's what evolution is. I don't care about where it came from or how it was created or where the universe started. Even if we both say that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, I don't. But even if I conceded that for a second, we still know that evolution has happened in the past 6,000 years.
Okay.
So I'm very confused as to why Israel has agreed to this debate, taking the negative position to is evolution true, if right at the start of his opening, he said evolution is true.
Well, because, evolution as it's presented as a theory in the modern world is that it accounts for, like, they teach this to children in school, right? They say for billions of years, things have been evolving. We all come from monkeys. This is how we got here. Right?
No, I'm sorry. No, none of that was correct. Number one, evolution is not a theory. There is the theory of evolution, same as there is music theory. It's just the explanation of everything we understand about it. Evolution does not say we came from monkeys. Monkeys and humans both have a common ancestor. I'm with all due respect here, Israel, I don't think you know what evolution is.
Again, like, evolution is clearly presented as the mechanism responsible for species evolving and things arriving at this place. So I'm saying that to say that what's been happening for millions of years, knowing that, like, oh, we all come from the same ancestors because we found a skull in a cave or something. I'm saying that can't be called true. Truth is not defined by what you think happened 10 million years ago based off of a fossil. Truth is defined by what we actually know is true. And I believe that God is the one who defines truth, because I don't think that us as human beings can determine what happened in the past or what happened for the past millions of years. So again, to the extent that you can observe evolution happening in the present moment, that doesn't account for how reality evolved to get to this point. And again, I would say that—
why do you keep going to reality? I'm sorry to interrupt, but why do you keep going to how reality got to this point? Evolution is nothing to do with reality. The truth of the matter is we can trace our ancestry back millions and millions of years. We can look at fossil records. Yes, it is true. It's 100% true. All of the evidence suggests that it's true. That's what true means. It means that you can back it up with evidence and
that's
facts
exactly
and
my
receipts.
point. That truth does not mean that you have evidence based off of your perspective, based off of your limited instruments and your ability to study a bone in a cave. That's not what defines truth. What defines truth is God. No, it's not.
No, that is what defines truth. What defines truth is evidence and facts and, you know, analyzing data. Like 1 + 1 is true because 1 + 1 is 2. That's just a fact. You know, God didn't make it true that 1 + 1 is 2. That's, you know, I take one of something and one of something else. I have two of those things. Well, true just means that we can look at the evidence and come to a conclusion. You know, God has nothing to do with what is true in regards to evolution. Well, you have agreed with me that species adapt and that traits get passed on. That is true.
Well, again, God has everything to do with the fact that 1 + 1 = 2. What we observe and well, again, if we believe that God created existence, then God set the terms for how things are. So if we can observe things in the present moment that are revealed to us, things that are very obvious, like, you know, you have 2 eyes and 1 nose, right? So yeah, that's true, not because it says it in the Bible, but because it's abundantly clear and obvious in front of our face. But when you're going to start venturing into the unknown, into what happened thousands and millions of years ago, and you're going to tell me because I have a bone, a bunch of bones, which obviously it's impossible to have a complete fossil record, but let's say you have fragments of bones that you think you can trace with the man-made machines, with the man-made calculations, with all of these ways in which you think you can determine these things. That's where I'm going to push back. I'm going to push back on the fact that you think that evolution can account for—
That's how we determine what's true.
I mean, that's how you determine what's true.
No, that's how humans as a species determine what's true, is we look at the evidence and we use tools that we have developed. God is literally not in this conversation because God could have created evolution. You know, I'm not here to deny the existence of God. You're just straight up rejecting empiricism. Like why am I debating you if you don't care about the evidence? All of the evidence, all of the fossil records, all of the lab experiments show that evolution is true. Let's not even talk about billions of years. Let's just talk in, decades. Let's look at the massive plate experiment showing that bacteria can, get to a point where it dies because of a concentration of the thing that's killing the bacteria, but then the bacteria passes on traits to its descendants that mutate enough that then they can go into the poison that they couldn't before. That is evolution. Do you deny that that's happened?
No, again, I'm not denying to the extent that things evolve.
Well, then I've won the debate.
Well, no, because evolution is presented as a theory that encompasses—
No, it's not a
millions
theory
of years.
So well, I'm sorry, but please stop saying evolution is a theory. You're using the word theory wrong. So you're using the layman's term of the word theory. I took a driving theory test so that I could get a driving license. That doesn't mean that driving is just a theory. The evolution of theory is simply all of the knowledge that we have about evolution, including the laws, including the experiments, including the predictions. It's not a theory. There is a theory of evolution, same as there is a theory of gravity, but gravity itself is not a theory.
I understand.
So you need to use words correctly.
Okay. You mean theory in the scientific term. I understand.
Yes, because that's the way that we talk about theory. If you're saying theory and evolution, we have to be using the scientific term, because evolution is not just a theory.
Okay, so if I say theory, assume I mean it in the scientific sense. But
you haven't been using it in the scientific sense.
Here's what I pulled that may help with like some clarification between the two, because there's still like an evolution theory, right? The theory of evolution. So the fact of evolution is organisms change from generation to generation. We can directly observe this in the laboratory and nature, right? Okay, like bacteria adapting, so on and so forth. The theory of evolution explains the mechanisms between how and why these changes occur, most notably through natural selection.
Yes, theories include facts. All of the facts are part of the theory of evolution. It's not just taught as a theory, that it's taught as a fact. And the theory is just everything that explains the mechanism, including all the facts, the laws, the predictions, the experiments, and everything. If you agree with me, Israel, that bacteria can evolve to go into poison it couldn't before, then you agree that evolution is true. I don't care if you want to keep going back to millions and billions of years. If you agree that evolution can happen in decades in a lab, then you agree that evolution is true.
Yes, I agree in principle that evolution can and does happen. However, again, you're
for me, 0 for you.
Okay, but no, but I think even what Sarah said was right. There's the fact that evolution happens on a scale that is observable within reality, and then there is the theory aspect, in the layman's term theory, that this
no, that's not the layman's term. Sorry, but you're doing it wrong again. What Sarah said was the scientific theory, which explains the mechanism. The theory includes the facts. The facts of evolution are part of the theory of evolution.
Okay, I'll try to use
it's not just a guess. It's not a okay, I see that
I've
got a theory. The scientific theory, that's the only way we're using the word in this discussion.
I understand.
It's not just a theory.
I see that the word theory triggers you, even though I could potentially mean it scientifically, but let's just use a different word.
Not using it scientifically is the thing.
I will say use a different word. The fact of evolution that is observable in the present moment is being used by scientists and extrapolated to justify what happened in the past, what happened in the unknowable past, so distant that
but it's not unknowable. We've measured it.
You've measured it how? By having a fossil?
With tools. We've measured like how time passes. We've measured how evolution changes, how species adapt. We've measured the time periods that certain fossil records have found and compared them to what we have now. You can look at a bat and see that it's got fingers like a human, which literally you can trace the lineage back to fossils where that common ancestor branched off. It's not unknowable. We look at the evidence and that makes it knowable. You are straight up hold on, Israel, you are rejecting empiricism, which I am not going to entertain.
Okay, you have a fossil record proving that a human being evolved from a bat?
No, that's not what I said.
Or that evolved from the same ancestor as a bat?
Yes.
There's a fossil record. You have a Grand Canyon pile of bones proving that there is a direct link between the ancestor of humans and bats, or is it
yes, we have fossil records that show that us and bats have a common ancestor. Yes, that is a thing.
How do you know it's a common ancestor?
Because you can look at the traits that have inherited and moved on, and you can see where the lineages separate. You can see where the speciation happened in the fossil record.
Or alternatively, things happen on Earth a very long time ago, and we have no idea what's going on. And it's entirely possible that, I mean, as you said, humans can even be put in the ape family. So, the fact
we are in the ape family. That's just a fact. We are one of the 5 great apes.
Okay. So the fact that you see that there are similarities between different species doesn't mean that they come from the same ancestor. That's an assumption.
Yeah, it does though, because you can trace those similarities back to a common ancestor that is within the fossil record. That's what you're ignoring here. You keep saying we don't know what's happened in the past, but the fossil record is literally us looking at what happened in the past. We can see that where bats and humans converged to a common ancestor, we can literally trace that back. I mean,
okay. How do you know?
But again, all of that is irrelevant to the fact that is evolution true? You've agreed that evolution is true. If evolution happens even on the micro scale in a lab, that means evolution is true. Even if you want to argue that, well, I don't think it could have happened in the past because we got no way of knowing, that's irrelevant to this conversation. I mean, the prompt is very, very simple. The prompt is 3 words. Is evolution true? Yes, evolution is true because we can see it happen in a lab.
Okay.
You have conceded the debate. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Okay. The father of evolution is Charles Darwin, and the name of his book is The Origin of Species, right? Exactly. The Origin of Species. So evolution is not just used as a way to point to something that's happening under a microscope in a lab today. It's used to define and describe where species originated from, and that everything.
Yeah, no, you're taking this, the title of the book like kind of a bit literal. He just means that we can trace ancestors back. Humans as a species, we can see where the origin of that, where we separated from the other common, from the common ancestor that is for monkeys and gorillas and orangutans and bonobos and every other primate. We can just look back at the fossil record and see where the origin of a particular thing branched off. But we're not saying the origin of all life. That's not what it means.
Mm-hmm. So let's just say I concede, because I've never, I mean,
okay, you concede.
I've never,
thanks for playing.
No, I said, let's say I concede that there is a fossil somewhere. I've never seen it. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but let's just assume there's a fossil somewhere that has a species that shares characteristics between bats and humans. Let's just say that's true. How do you know that that means that we descend from the same ancestor? Maybe that's an entirely different creature.
Because traits from that species, from that common ancestor, appear in both of us. And you can literally, through the fossil records of bats and humans, trace it back to a common ancestor. You're acting like we don't have fossils that show the transition. We do. We literally have fossil records showing what the common ancestor was. I don't know its name. Maybe it was Bob.
So just because, again, I'm taking this on faith in the scientific institution that we have these fossil records.
Science doesn't do faith.
Well, I mean, I've never seen it. I've never seen the evidence.
I would suggest researching them before you come to a debate about evolution.
Okay. Let's just say we believe that there is a common ancestor, as in you can see this ancient unknown species that doesn't exist on Earth today that has shared characteristics between humans and bats. When you bring God into the picture and you see the creation account, I do. And so when I bring God,
with all due respect, God was not in the prompt.
Well,
that's true, but God undermines evolution as a primary way of seeing the world, because God speaks and things come into existence. So no longer am I concerned with evolution.
Actually, I think it was the flying spaghetti monster who is better than your God, because my God, the flying spaghetti monster, created the universe in 5 days, Welsh drinking heavily, and his chosen people are pirates. So I win.
Okay, I mean, you can make a mockery of God. That's not going to change anything.
No, it's not. Sorry, are you making the mockery of this flying spaghetti monster?
So what about human species? Can we, because that would be a route, right? Craig, you mentioned it earlier, how the human species came from something else, which came from something else. But I think creationism would actually say otherwise to that. Would that tap into the concept of evolution in terms of the mechanics behind the mechanisms behind it? Because that would be humans would have biologically petri dished themselves into something else from something completely different prior, correct?
Well, yeah, we can look, that's what I'm saying. We can look at the fossil record and see where, for instance, Neanderthals and humans were also from a common ancestor, and we can see where that speciation happened, where that branch happened. We can look back and see why the human brain evolved, because we can tell a point in history from the fossil record where there was scarce resources and humans had to adapt to the environmental pressures. And that caused our brain to get bigger. It was the ones that could think abstractly outside the box that were able to pass on their genes. And we can see these things within the fossil records. Israel is just denying that the evidence exists. So I don't really want to change the topic. I want to stick to, is evolution true? That doesn't matter whether it happened over millions of years or if it happens in decades in a lab. Either of those can say that evolution is true. And if Israel is just going to go, well, I don't know what happened in the past. Cool story, bro. Doesn't really matter. Evolution still happens. It's happening now to humans. There are humans in the Andes that have literally evolved the ability to require less oxygen because they live at a higher altitude to the rest of humanity. So we still see evolution happening now. We see adaptations to environmental pressures. We see traits being passed on that are more beneficial, which means you're more likely to survive. That's all that evolution is. It really doesn't care about the origin of anything.
Okay, again, a pretty rich one. The book is called The Origin of Species, and it's used
Hold on,
to
I'm trying to
define
understand. I want to make sure
existence.
I understand this so that I can try to help you guys move forward. But if you're saying it doesn't care about the origin, but wouldn't the origin of a human species, what we are today, that origin came from what you're presuming to be those mechanisms, correct? But the like if you're not concerned with the origin, then where does it start? That one, let's just pretend I'm trying to get clarification here. Let's just pretend everything started with one tiny little tadpole in the water somewhere, and the earth is just nothing but fields and canyons of nothingness.
But that's abiogenesis,
I want to make sure I understand it. Like that one little tadpole ended up turning into a fish, and that fish turned into an alligator, and that alligator turned into a banana, and that banana turned into a human, right? Just for funny purposes. But
not really.
What I know, but what I'm saying is like if that is the origin of humans in all of that evolution mechanisms that you're saying. But I think Israel would say the origin of humans would not be like that mechanism, right? Wouldn't that?
Well, yeah. So if we mean the ultimate origin of the universe or the origin of life, then no. But if we're talking about the origin of some particular clade-like hominid, then yes, it's about origin. And we can literally look at the fossil records and see where what we would call humans now started.
Mm-hmm. So there'd be 2 points that I would say to that. First of all, when I look at the creation account in Genesis, I'm seeing man is created by God in the image of God. So to me, it's far more important to believe in an account where God is speaking and says man is in the image of God, rather than man randomly evolved from an ape and somehow mysteriously gained an extreme amount of consciousness.
Cool, but you would need evidence and a mechanism for that. How did God make him man in the image of him? How did he do that specifically?
With his words.
No, right. So how did words do that?
He said, and it was so.
Yeah, but how? How did words do that?
I mean, God can speak things into existence.
How can God speak things into existence? Explain the mechanism.
With his words define.
Yeah, but you just keep saying the same thing. Explain specifically how God's words make things happen. What's the mechanism? How does that physically happen?
It certainly doesn't take millions of years.
But you're just saying things.
I mean, no, I'm not. I'm saying that
you are. You're just, there's no evidence behind what you're saying. You're just saying God spoke things into existence. How?
Yeah.
How did he do that? What is the mechanism?
With his words. Again, you're saying the mechanism.
With his words. How do words make a thing happen?
The matter coalesces and becomes that thing that God wants it to be.
How?
How did his words make that happen? You would need it to happen over millions of years. Whatever you think evolution.
Sorry, you're avoiding the answer to the question. How did his words make matter coalesce?
I don't know the
mechanism?
scientific terms to construct the organic matter that forms a human being, but however that is,
if you don't know then that's not part of the argument. If you don't
however
know,
that is,
God made a thing happen, then I can just say the flying spaghetti monster made evolution happen millions of years ago. So I've got as much claim there as you. Okay. You know, it's really not part of the argument to say God brought things into existence. We can look at the fossil record and see that humans have a common ancestor with other things. That's all that matters. You're just straight up rejecting empiricism.
The fact that you can actually make alignment between two species doesn't mean that they come from the same origin source.
We can see where the separation happened.
Again, like God is actually the one who is creating a human being.
No, it was the flying spaghetti monster. You keep getting that wrong. The flying spaghetti monster created the universe, not God.
Well, I mean, external to any process in which a human being has to come from a monkey. So to the extent that you see all of these dispersed fossils, you don't necessarily know what era they came from.
You're rejecting empiricism, Israel.
Well, no, I'm rejecting your ability to take a couple of bones and look at them under a microscope.
Not just a couple of bones,
and decide what has happened. Records. You know how many countless fossil records you'd need to determine what has happened for millions of
yes, and we
years?
have all of the fossil records. We have all the fossil records we require to see where species separated, where speciation happened, where lineages diverged. We have those fossil records. We can literally trace them back in time with radiometric dating, redshift, stratigraphy, genetic molecular clocks, ice core dating. There's many different ways to measure where in time a particular thing came from, and then we can literally put the puzzle pieces together and show that this came from that. I'm not going to accept you rejecting empiricism and putting, but God did it. Every time you say, but God did it, no, he didn't. The flying spaghetti monster did it before your God did it, and in 5 days instead of 7. So my God's better than yours and I win.
Something tells me that there's pretty big gaps in those puzzle pieces.
No, the gaps are not there. There's more than enough fossil records to fill in all the pieces that we need.
Mm-hmm. Also, how do you know?
I honestly think that you've never researched evolution.
How do you know? I mean, I have, but how do you know that?
It doesn't sound like it.
How do you know that the tracing of the lineages are actually correct when the Earth could have been an entirely different place thousands and millions of years ago?
What do you mean the Earth could have been an entirely different place? What do you mean?
Well, I'll give you an example. In the Bible, it says that people live 900 years. Do you think that
humans can't live 900 years? That's nonsense.
So what that would mean is, if it's true, that the very fabric of existence was different thousands of years ago.
No, that humans have never lived 900 years.
How do you know that using your modern technology and your limited human knowledge, you can determine what has happened for thousands of years when there's a chance that the Earth had an entirely different constitution and was made up of different forms of matter?
Because we can look at the fossil records and see what specific environment they lived in. It leaves traces, it leaves evidence. Again, you're just going what if. None of that is saying that evolution is not true. Well, Israel, you have conceded this debate and you have turned up to a scientific debate but I think humans live for 900 years with zero evidence of that fact.
Again, if that were true, which you have to acknowledge it as a possibility, that would make your scientific
it's not a possibility. Humans have never lived for 900 years. That is not a thing that's ever happened.
How do you know?
Because we can look at the fossil records and we can see how long things have lived for. We can tell the ages that things were when they died.
Using your tools that you created with your limited human understanding. So you're relying on your own...
the tools that were given to us by the flying spaghetti monster that we know specifically how they work.
You're relying on your own ability, not just to study this reality in this moment, but to take that and extrapolate that knowledge for the past 10 million years and conclude that human beings have never
relying
lived.
On a book written by sheep herders several thousand years ago. My tools beat your book.
Why do they beat my book if my book was written by people that had contact with God? God
There's
beats
no evidence they
your
had contact
tools.
with God. Pretty much every this isn't a religious debate, but every story in the Bible was told in previous religions. It's just plagiarism, so it really shouldn't be part of the conversation.
Well, it wasn't told in
it's
previous.
Irrelevant. Okay, it's irrelevant. I'm not going to get into a religious debate. All right, we just need to look at the evidence that exists, and the evidence shows that evolution is true because we can literally see it happening in labs. All right, I do not care if you don't think it happened millions of years ago. That wasn't the prompt for the debate. The prompt was simply, is evolution true? Let's limit it to the past 10 years and look at lab tests in the past 10 years that show empirically, categorically, without doubt, that evolution is a thing. Therefore, evolution is true.
Can I ask, in terms of proving evolution true or not, right? The mechanisms. Like, what is the purpose of the prompt to prove that? Because to prove, okay, I can prove that I can do a science experiment. I can prove that humans can walk. I can prove that, water flows downhill or something like that, right? But I guess what is the point of the prompt to prove outside of just saying this thing happens? Where's the bigger picture from it?
I mean,
as I understand the bigger
picture,
that's
not the prompt for the debate. The bigger picture, it's just, is evolution
right,
true?
Right.
That's what I prepared for. I have literally just prepared for the question: is evolution true?
Yeah,
but
and
evolution attempts to explain the bigger picture.
But the bigger picture is
teach children in school.
Hold on.
They teach children in school that
Israel. This isn't about what's taught in school.
Hold on.
Jesus,
both of you, we were doing fine. I guess what's the point of proving that these mechanisms exist, right? Like, I have a car, I can sit here and say it is true that the wheels go round and round, right? it's observable. What's to disprove from it? What's the point to disprove it? I guess I'm trying to ask, if we're not going down like any type of God route, or what even the evolution theory or the beginning of things, I guess, what is the point to prove that the wheels on a tire go round, which is the mechanisms of evolution? What are we trying to prove aside from
evolution happens? It's very, very simple. Evolution happens. We can see it happening. It's happened in labs. You know,
right.
And with all due respect, none of what you just said, Sarah, was in the prompt for the debate. The prompt was very, very specific. Is evolution true? Right?
Yeah, I'm asking what would be the purpose of proving evolution true, the mechanisms of evolution to be true? What's the
so that we can make
purpose?
Predictions and test it and understand the more about the universe around us. And that's all that I've done in this entire debate. Is I've shown predictions, I've shown testing. I've not shown. I've explained, and I've got all the evidence if you want to actually physically shown. But that's the debate. Isn't about where did the car come from. The debate would be, why do the wheels turn? And the answer to that would be, well, the mechanism is that there's an explosion that's controlled in the combustion chamber of the engine, which pushes the pistons, which makes the wheels turn. And these are just mechanisms that we can go from A to B to C. I don't care what Israel thinks about why is this taught to children. That's not part of the debate. The debate is evolution true? And we need to stick to that topic. If Israel wanted a more specific prompt, then he should have asked for a more specific prompt. But it seems to me that Israel has come to a science debate with some paper and nothing else.
I guess, but even scientifically, like, what is there to prove wrong and why? What is the point to prove it wrong?
Again, I don't understand. That wasn't the debate. The prompt was nothing to do with the point.
If you and I were debating why does the whether or not the wheel on a car turns, what if I say
to get you from A to B?
Wheel on the car turns, why is it important that I say no it doesn't versus you saying yes it does, when like we both know and understand observably, yeah, the wheel's turning, but what do I care? What would be my purpose of debating the no side?
Well, there's some people that say that jet fuel doesn't exist and the F1 cars run on compressed air. So, the no for why the wheels move would be, I say it's petroleum exploding, and someone else would say, no, it's compressed air making it move. The mechanisms are what's important here.
So
Israel has offered no mechanism.
So you just wanted to debate like a lunatic who denies, like, oh, things move in existence. Like, look,
well, I want to debate, is evolution true? Because that's the point of the debate.
But when evolution is presented as a theory, it's presented as a...
It's not presented as a theory. Stop saying that.
As a scientific theory. It's presented as a way of explaining life on Earth. And
do me a favor, Israel. Can you define a scientific theory for me?
Yes, it is way more important than a layman's theory. It actually has evidence backing it up, right? So
that's really like it's in the ballpark of what a scientific theory is, but it's not what a scientific theory is.
It doesn't mean the same as a layman's theory. It's a lot more serious. It has evidence, and it's almost a fact. Or maybe no.
It's not almost a fact. A scientific theory contains facts. All of the facts are part of the scientific theory. It's not almost a fact. It's higher than a fact.
Again, when I say theory, I don't mean to trigger you. It's just how evolution is.
You're not triggering me. You're just saying the words wrong, and you come to the wrong debate.
So again, evolution, when it's presented as a means of describing the way that life has gotten to this point on Earth, it's described as the primary mechanism. In fact, it's described as the only mechanism in which things have come. To that degree, you've already denied that it's impossible that there have existed people on Earth who lived 900 years based off of...
because we can test that kind of thing. We can test ancestry. We can see how long people lived based on the dating of certain things. So there is no evidence that anyone ever lived 900 years.
There's no evidence based off of your model, your machine, the way that you
Which is
have
the only
judged...
model that exists. If you have an alternative model, then please feel free to present it.
The model is faith, infinite
No,
possibility.
faith isn't a model. A model, let's be very clear, because you need to use words correctly. A model requires predictive capabilities.
Okay, but again, you are relying on human capabilities in order to predict.
No, I'm relying on words meaning what they mean.
And I understand.
Not what you want them to mean, because you have to have your book be true.
Yeah, I'm just saying that ultimately you are reliant on the human faculties to judge.
Guys, he said that
things.
the model is faith. I mean, that's as dumb as a flat earther saying that gravity isn't real and things just fall down because.
Can we repeat this evolution from the beginning? Can we repeat this cycle as is?
Well, it's still happening.
Well, I mean,
every species that exists now is a transitional species because all species are always a transitional species. Evolution is ongoing all of the time.
But could we repeat the mechanisms from the beginning, right?
But the mechanism is still ongoing.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about abiogenesis again, which is nothing to do with this debate. It doesn't matter where it started. That's irrelevant.
I wasn't even talking about the Genesis, which is an entirely different conversation. I'm even talking about
abiogenesis.
I'm not talking about the abiogenesis.
Words need to be
I'm not talking about the actual origination point, which is a different conversation. I'm even
Israel,
talking
what
about.
Shape is the planet?
I've been told it's round by people of your kind. I'm kidding. Wait.
Israel, do you deny that the Earth is round?
No, I don't deny that. I don't.
But you just said
I don't care to deny it.
So, are you not certain that the Earth is round?
I'm not certain, and I don't care. But
Sarah, you've got me debating a flat earther.
No, I don't think
I'm
he's
not
a flat earther.
I'm absolutely not a flat earther.
I think what he's saying is, I accept the concept that the Earth is round. Can I prove it? No, but I'll accept it.
And again, I'm sure you have the physics and the numbers to prove it, and I'm not interested in getting that debate with you.
Science,
personally,
there's no such thing as scientific proof. Let's be clear with that.
You have the numbers and the proof to demonstrate that. I'm not a flat earther. I will never die on that hill unless it became abundantly clear that the Earth was flat. However,
right. So you're saying it's a possibility.
Based off of my limited knowledge, I'm not as knowledgeable as you on this.
And I'm pretty sure that's very limited at this point.
The point that I'm making is that you are the theory of evolution as it's presented. And when I say theory, I mean scientific theory, not layman's theory.
You don't, because you don't know what scientific theory means.
It is a collection of facts.
There's a lot more to it than that. Facts are part of it.
Okay. Again, I'm not interested in debating the meaning of scientific theory. When I say,
well, then stop using the word.
You use the word. That's a scientific word. Scientists refer to evolution as a theory.
Use it if you're not going to use it right.
When I say the theory of evolution, I mean the scientific theory of evolution. So you don't have to debate that
because
point.
You keep using it wrong. So you don't mean that.
I'm saying science says in the theory of evolution that species have come from the process of evolution. This mechanism of evolution is responsible for the evolvement of species that we see on Earth. And based off of our judgment of this mechanism in this present moment, we're going to extrapolate that understanding to account for the past 1,000 years, 10,000 years, million years. We're going to use our little instruments in a lab to look at a tooth.
They're not
in a
little
cave.
Instruments. They've been developed by shown to be able to make correct predictions. Again, what you're doing, Israel, and this is going around in circles at this point, you are rejecting empiricism, which I am not interested in discussing if you just reject empiricism.
It's not empiricism.
If you are saying that evolution isn't true and that God made man, then present the mechanism. Don't just say his words, present the actual mechanism. Fundamentally, how did God make man in his image? Describe it step by step.
Again, I wasn't there. I don't know. All I can tell you is whatever it takes. Whatever it takes in the material realm for things to materialize, that was the mechanism. The reality is, though,
how did God do that? Was it
God
technological?
has power over existence.
So magic's real.
Yeah, of course. I mean, God.
No, magic. Sorry, but Harry Potter is a story. It's not a thing.
I mean, God actually has divine abilities to do things miraculously. He doesn't need like a machine. Then. He doesn't need a machine to like technology in a lot of ways, especially human technology, is an external use that's trying to act on reality. God is reality itself. So God doesn't need to use external tools to manipulate reality.
Sorry, the flying spaghetti monster is reality. You keep getting that wrong.
Again, calling God the flying spaghetti monster is just
No.
disrespectful.
I'm not saying
But
God is the flying spaghetti monster. I'm saying the flying spaghetti monster is the flying spaghetti monster, and he's better than your God because he
But
did it in
he's
5
all
days
powerful.
instead of 7.
But
Yes,
he's
the flying spaghetti monster is all powerful.
so then he's
because
God.
he made the universe in 5 days.
Then he's God. I just
No,
don't
he's not
think
God.
it's-
He's the flying
I
spaghetti
just don't
monster.
think it's
Bless his
very
noodly appendage.
I mean, God just means, and you want to talk about definitions, God just means a powerful divine force in existence, right? So if you're powerful divine
There's nothing
force in
divine about the
existence,
flying spaghetti monster. He made the universe because he has the ability to do that because he's the flying spaghetti monster. It was all done with marinara sauce.
Okay. Again, you think you can make a mockery out of the existence of the divine as you
you're making a mockery out of the flying spaghetti
as
monster.
you
Let's
sit
make
here
that clear.
on your high horse as a singular human being.
I have no high horse. I came for a scientific debate, and you're throwing a book
Let
at
him
me.
finish his thought. Craig.
Surrounded by your scientific buddies saying, "Oh, look at us with our little microscope. We can decide what happened."
You're making a mockery of science, then.
God, of course, gladly, I'd make a mockery of the human understanding of existence.
Well, I can make a mockery of your pathetic little puny God, then.
Thank you, and you've already done that. So we're even. Now we're even. But the reality is,
dude, we're not even in the slightest. Like there is no level on that we are even. Sorry.
Okay. The reality is that either you're going to rely on the human capacity for understanding existence and reality, and judging
I'm going
off
to rely on evidence, logic, predictions, and testing.
Let him finish.
And judging off of what's observable to you in this moment, you're going to assume that you can dictate what happened for millions of years because you have a complete fossil
I'm just talking
record.
about the past 10 years.
Finish.
So again,
Craig,
as Sarah said pretty eloquently, there's no point of having a debate. Again, maybe you're used to like debating lunatics who are like, oh,
I am. That's what I do.
I understand.
I'm debating one right now.
Okay, I'm not here to deny that the Earth is round. I'm not here to deny that microbiomes under a microscope evolve and change, or that species, or that the finches.
So evolution is true.
Yes, evolution is a factual thing in reality. However,
Sarah, I've just won the debate.
However, science. Yeah, but again, you're denying that evolution is extrapolated to determine.
I'm sorry, but the extrapolation was not part of the prompt.
That is the theory. That theory, scientific.
If you wanted to debate a different thing than is evolution true, then you should have asked for a different prompt. Let's stick to the prompt. Is evolution true? Can we see evolution happening in labs? Yes. Therefore, evolution is true.
Okay, so you want to have a debate? Is the sky blue? I'm not willing to have that debate.
It's not blue all the time.
I get it. I'm just saying. I'm saying that evolution, as it's known. Blue? I don't. I'd be glad for you to tell me.
Rayleigh scattering. It's certain wavelengths of light are absorbed, and blue gets through more than others.
The light, right? Of course, beautiful. So, what I wanted to say is that
thank you, flying spaghetti monster. Bless his noodly appendage.
As evolution is presented to the public, as it's presented as a way and a means of understanding not just the past 10 years, but the past 10 million years, maybe even the past 10 billion years. And that's what I'm pushing back here, because I think
nothing to do with the past 10 billion years. Earth is not 10 billion years old.
Craig, please
10 million.
let him finish.
Sorry,
10 million or whatever, however many million years the world has been around. And I'm not even denying that the world is old. I'm just saying that for you to say on the basis of our scientific instruments, we can determine, because we know that reality has always been the same and always will be the same. And maybe, again, you have to deal with these what ifs, because this what if would ruin your studies. If the Earth was fundamentally on a material level different thousands or millions of years ago, then your modern instruments would be insufficient in measuring that. What?
Sorry, I'm just looking at the super chat that's popped out. It's quite
I'm saying
you're babbling nonsense. There's nothing to do with the prompt of the debate. It's irrelevant. Is evolution true? Yes, we can see it happen in labs. Unless you can refute that we can see evolution happen in labs, that means that evolution is true. The debate prompt is not how is evolution presented at schools. That was not the debate prompt. The debate prompt is not what does science say about millions of years in the past was happening. That was not the debate prompt. The debate prompt, which I prepared for, because I checked with Sarah what the debate prompt was several times, was, is evolution true? That is what I prepared for. That is what I wrote a very eloquent and evidence-full presentation for at the beginning, that is exactly the things that I injected my unique form of humor into to explain. And you came and went, yeah, I agree, evolution happens. We have no debate, Israel.
Again, I guess you just wanted to have like a low-hanging fruit debate because, like,
no,
you're an idiot.
I wanted the prompt of the debate to be the prompt of the debate.
Yeah, but again, you have to understand that evolution has an implication. Evolution.
But the implication of evolution was not the prompt of the debate.
Well, it's implied. That's what an implication is.
No, it's not. The prompt of the debate is the prompt. There is no implication in the prompt. The prompt is very simple.
Okay.
Is evolution true? It's 3 words. Even flat earthers can mostly count to 3. Some of them.
So
wait,
again,
maybe half of them.
As an esteemed scientist, do you feel like this is out of your
I'm not a
depth?
scientist.
You're not a physicist, engineer. That's what your bio
yeah,
said.
that I've got a degree in physics and a degree in engineering. I am not a scientist or a physicist.
Okay. Well, either way, the point is, do you feel that this is out of your depth? Because as I see it,
no, I don't think it's out of my depth.
This is exactly what evolution means. Evolution means not just what happens in the current moment.
Sorry, but the prompt wasn't what does evolution mean?
Craig,
the prompt was, is evolution true?
Finish his thought, please. I beg of you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm just actually getting a little frustrated with him trying to change the topic of the debate.
You probably are going to get more frustrated if you keep interrupting him because he hasn't been able to finish his thought and bring it back around.
Okay, right. But can you stick to the prompt, right? Don't talk about implications or anything. Just stick to the prompt. Is evolution true?
Again, if the prompt is it observable that there are changes within existence? Like not everything is uniform, locked in time and space. Things are changing and moving and evolving. Obviously, I'm not going to deny that. The same way I'm not going to deny any very obvious fact, like the fact that when you stab someone, blood comes pouring out of them.
Then why did you come to the debate with this particular prompt?
Because evolution does not just mean the observable mechanism of things changing in reality. Evolution
yes, it does.
refers to the broader scientific theory that evolution accounts for how life got to this point on Earth over a period of millions of years. That's abundantly clear to anyone who knows what evolution
not what
is.
Prompt is, though. You're changing the prompt.
I think that's a pretty fair assumption that when we talk about evolution, we're not just talking about the mechanism of things changing and evolving.
Well, then you
in
should
reality,
have asked for a more specific prompt, shouldn't you?
Again, I don't think it's right or necessary to play the blame game. Although I'm just telling you that this is.
I'm going to blame you for not preparing for the correct debate. It's your fault. The fact that you read scripture during your opening means that you prepared for the wrong debate.
I'll read scripture all the time. I'll read scripture.
Then you shouldn't have come to a debate with the prompt, is evolution true, if you were going to read scripture?
Well, again, because like I said, scientists and science uses evolution to account for how life evolved on Earth to get to this point, whereas scripture presents a point of view that God is the one who is responsible for everything. And God is the one who's behind everything. And that why in the world would we leave millions and billions of years for things to evolve when God can speak things into reality in a single moment?
Yeah, the beginning of reality was not part of the prompt of the debate. I'm sorry, but
I'm not even talking about.
No, I'm not talking about the debate.
I'm not even talking about the beginning of reality. That's a whole other conversation.
Do you want to set up a different debate and have a different prompt? Because you're not sticking to the prompt.
I'm talking about your assumption that the mechanism of evolution.
I made no assumptions.
Are you telling me you don't believe that the mechanism of evolution is?
It's irrelevant to the topic of the debate.
Okay, so let's change the debate.
No
evolution. No.
If you want a different debate, then we will set up a different debate.
I guess because I did ask the question, could you repeat it? And you said, well, it's always ongoing, right? So was there a beginning factor that we could repeat?
That would be abiogenesis, not evolution.
No, abiogenesis accounts for how the first original components of existence came into being. Like, we can
see that multicellular things happen. We can see how single cell becomes multicellular. So, that's how it began. But again, that's abiogenesis. That's the very beginning, which is not the topic of the debate.
I understand. I have not gone to abiogenesis. I've only talked about evolution.
Because, you have. You said the beginning of reality.
No,
I said the start and everything.
I said
how literally
how reality.
But you're too dumb to understand that you did that.
I'm saying, how did reality get to this point? You believe it was
But that's
through
not the
evolution.
topic of the debate.
But that is what evolution is about. Evolution is not just trying.
It has nothing to do with reality at all.
I mean, the reality of this world. Evolution has to do.
Evolution has nothing to do with this world.
Is evolution not an attempt to explain how species evolved to this point?
Species are not the world.
Okay, species. How species evolved to this point? Is that not the attempt that evolution?
You're using the word evolved. So what do you think?
Well, I think that it was created. That's my point.
Cool. Present a mechanism.
God.
How? Just God is not a mechanism. It's a word.
God is an all-powerful force in existence. Beyond me and you, uncreated reality itself has full control over everyone and everything in existence, and comes and says,
this flying spaghetti monster does. You're wrong.
So again, if you want to refer to God as the flying spaghetti monster,
not God, the flying spaghetti monster.
So is the flying spaghetti monster stronger than God?
Oh yeah, he much stronger because he did it in 5 days whilst drinking
then
heavily
he's
instead
God.
of 7.
Then he's God. Then he's God.
No, he's not God. He's the flying spaghetti monster.
Again, as I said, God just means strong divine power. So to the extent that
there's
there is a
divine.
power,
he did it with a machine.
He did it with a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who created the flying spaghetti monster?
Oh, the flying spaghetti monster did.
He created himself, so he's uncreated.
Yeah.
Well, that's my definition of divinity. I don't know what you think divinity is, but my divinity.
So your definition of divinity is a flying spaghetti monster creating itself.
Well, not creating itself. I believe that God is uncreated and he is existence itself. If God didn't exist, then existence wouldn't exist. And because existence exists,
assumption.
The power and the spirit that animates existence that brought about this earth and me and you, the reason why any of us have consciousness, which is a total mystery.
Sarah, I'd recommend going to the Q&A because he's incapable of engaging with the actual topic.
How did human beings get to such a differentiated point from apes if we're just from the same ancestors?
We are apes. We didn't get to a different point to apes. We are apes. We're one of the 5 great apes.
Okay. I'm talking about in terms of spirit and soul and ability to communicate and process.
None of those
reality.
are part of evolution.
No. So where did they come from?
They're constructs that humans came up with. They're not the topic of the debate. Nothing to do with spirituality is anything to do with is evolution true. You are absolutely incapable of engaging with the topic of the debate. You can't do it.
That's not true because
it is because you've not done it once this entire debate.
Evolution, as the scientific fact that's presented, is used to explain the origin of species and how things got to this point.
The prompt of the debate was not the origin of species. If you wanted to discuss the origin of species, you should have asked for that to be the prompt. Please stick to the topic of the debate.
Again, if you're going to try to get me in a corner and be like, I don't believe that things change in reality, you're not going to get that, right? So obviously,
you came to the wrong debate.
I don't know why you think that like it's a great thing to do to debate people who don't know anything and who are abundantly stupid. Maybe that's like nice, but the reality is I'm here to debate.
You're abundantly stupid.
No, I'm saying that's what you thought I was because you thought I was going to deny the fact of observable evolution in reality. I don't know why you think anyone would deny that.
You came here to take the negative to the prompt, is evolution true?
Because evolution,
so yes, I assumed you were stupid.
Okay, well, evolution doesn't just refer to the observable mechanism in reality. It refers to the broader scientific theory that it accounts for, like, as you said in this conversation, humans got here because we came from the same ancestors as monkeys.
Once again, though, the prompt was not the broader scientific theory of evolution and its implications. The prompt was very simple. Is evolution true? It's 3 words, Israel. 3 words. That was it. I didn't bait you. You chose to come for this debate. I didn't choose the prompt. It was offered to me. I prepared for a particular prompt. I am not here for a religious argument. I am not here to talk about the origin of species. I'm not here to talk about the implication of a soul or a God. I'm here to answer the question, is evolution true? Yes, I assumed you were stupid because you were taking the negative of is evolution true, when it's more fundamentally shown to be a fact than gravity.
Mm-hmm. Even though that evolution, when it's stated, refers to the broader scientific theory of evolution that is used to account for the origin of species.
No, it's not
how it got here.
It's simply about the passing on traits. That's all it is. There's no implication of the broader scientific meaning. It is a word with a meaning, and that is it. There is the scientific theory, which has all of those facts and everything involved. But again, we're not here to debate the scientific theory of evolution and all its implications. We are here to debate a very simple prompt, which you seem to be failing at.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I have to be honest with you. I never assumed that that was debatable, or that you thought that such a conversation would be a rich debate as to, like, do things move in reality and change in a minor fashion over time.
And why did you come to this debate with this prompt?
Because everyone knows that when you say evolution, you're referring to the theory of evolution, not just to the factual. Yeah, but
you're talking about the implications of it. We're not here to discuss the implications of it. We're here to show is evolution true, and we can see it happening in labs in months, in weeks, in days.
Maybe I could apply my Blondie observations here, because even I understood it as I guess my understanding would have been what Craig understands as evolution theory. So I will take the heat for that, because I went and found a religious-based person to take on the debate, assuming that that's what we were debating. So I will take the bullet on this one. I don't believe this to be Israel's fault or Craig's fault, except for my just lack of understanding that there's a technicality built into that prompt that happened to be in Craig's favor. Now, that would be all on me. So I will take the heat for all of this. You both are off the hook. Now, here's what we can do. We can either put this away, and I can pull up people for Q&A, and we can move on with our lives and move on with the conversation. And maybe the panelists, maybe Israel, there will be panelists who want to question you on creationism. Right, I said that word right. And Craig, maybe there are other little science nerds that would actually like to debate you on evolution as the mechanism that whether they are true or not. Would that satisfy both of you to move forward in that direction?
Yeah, I don't think Israel's come to the correct debate. So I think moving to Q&A is the appropriate thing here, because it's just going to go around in circles. I'm going to keep demanding that he provide an actual mechanism, and he's not going to be able to. He's just going to misunderstand and use words incorrectly.
I am taking that bullet because that was my understanding, and that's what I delivered to Israel. I went to find a religious-based person to take on that topic as a more creationist standard, because I assumed the same thing that I think Israel is assuming. So I will take this bullet right here. Israel, you are not on the hook for this. This was my lack of finding the technicality in that prompt. All right. If you would like to both move forward, let's go ahead, and I'm assuming you both do, correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
no worries.
please.
I just would want to say that, like, I researched some of Craig's videos, and I saw him having a debate with Andrew Wilson, which was an entirely religious debate. I
No,
assumed
it wasn't. It was a society debate.
Okay, well, a society debate, whether the religious perspective is correct or the secular perspective is correct. So
it wasn't even the religious. It was, Christian morals, and it wasn't really a religious debate. There was nothing religious in the debate. And Andrew Wilson just turned up and didn't even address the topic, just strawman secular humanism, and then shot over the board like a pigeon, trying to say it's one chess. Okay, and then I beat his wife in another debate. That was fun.
Okay, so all I would like to point out is that I think it's reasonable to assume that when secular scientists debate evolution, they're debating the broader theory of evolution, not just the mechanistic fact of evolution in reality. So I'll just point that out.
All right,
again, Craig, you clearly hold those beliefs, based off of many of the things you said.
Beliefs are irrelevant. I base my position on logic and evidence.
You clearly logically concluded secular atheistic.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an absolute secular humanist, but I would absolutely say that secular humanism is a better worldview than Christianity. But no, you're making assumptions about me that you are unaware of.
I think it's okay. Either way, gentlemen, you have your belief system and you both run your worldviews exactly as you deem fit. All right. If you would like to join the panel, I have dropped the link into the live chat. If you're watching on either Craig or Israel's, I don't know if it drops it in there from my end directly or if the link is clickable.
Could you put it in the chat on
I can absolutely do that.
Well,
and I think you're both capable of just copy pasting that and dropping it directly in on on your end.
you.
And any and everyone can join. All I ask is when you do come backstage, just give me a quick cam up. If you're an avatar person, we welcome you. Just give me a quick cam up and hello backstage. That's all I need. All right, let's move into closing statements. And at this rate, use your closing statements whichever way you wish to do it, because it doesn't matter. Again, this is on me, gentlemen. I'm going to take the heat on this one. I completely went the wrong direction. Israel, your closing thoughts, please.
Thank you. So, as I said previously, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that evolution refers to the broader scientific theory of evolution. Craig clearly demonstrated that he does believe in that broader scientific theory of evolution. So I don't know why we have to get caught on a technicality, but because I did come prepared to debate the broader scientific theory of evolution, I will just say that I do believe that it is far more reasonable to assume that the perfection and the deliberate design of reality was a creation and not an evolution. Cannot account for for how life got to this point on Earth. I think that it's a very narrow frame. I think it's using a frame that is by definition ruling out God and saying the only mechanism that works is one that we can observe, and then we apply that mechanism and assume that we understand what has happened on Earth for millions of years on the basis of an incomplete fossil record, by the way. I don't think anyone should believe that there is a fossil record that's actually tracing millions of years of species and having the direct linkages. A lot of it is speculation, a lot of it is extrapolation and theorizing, and I think that we should stick to the truth. And either the truth is going to be defined by human beings and their understandings of empiricism and their tools and the way that they measure things, or truth is going to be defined by a higher power. Craig wants to call the higher power the flying spaghetti monster. I choose to be a little more deferent to the higher power and call him God, Yahweh, Lord of existence, who is our Father and Creator, who is responsible for us existing on this earth. And we should thank him for the beautiful creation. The other day I stood out, watched the sunrise, and I couldn't believe that there are people that think that this world is not created. This world is beautiful. It is magical. It is miraculous. God is great, and praise him. And I think that, to the extent that science has contributed to the world, great. But I think scientists and science operates with a huge hubris and the assumption that only us as human beings get to determine what existence is and how it's come to be. I think that that's terrible. And so I would just say, read the Bible, especially the first 5 books, especially the first 5 books. That's what's called the Torah. It's the 5 books of Moses. That's where all the foundational narratives. Craig said that because those narratives appear in other religious texts, therefore it's plagiarism. It's not plagiarism. It actually is evidence that this was the understood history of the world. And so the Bible is history. The Bible is truth, and start from the beginning. God bless.
Thank you so much, Israel. And Craig, to you, please.
Yeah, I read the Bible. That's why I don't believe any of it. Ladies and gentlemen, since my opponent decided that this was no longer a debate about evolution and instead became a theological interpretive dance, I think it's only fair that I close with an ode to the flying spaghetti monster. O great noodly one, Lord of pasta sauce and suspiciously convenient explanations, bless us this evening with your divine meatballs. For if God did it is enough to defeat science, then surely the flying spaghetti monster did it is equally powerful. After all, can Israel disprove the cosmic pasta? Can he prove the universe was not kneaded into being by sacred carbohydrates? Can he show that DNA was not woven by his noodly appendage? No? Then by his own standard, pasta wins. And that is exactly the problem, because unfalsifiable claims are easy. Anyone can make them. God did it. The flying spaghetti monster did it. Aliens did it. A time-traveling badger did it. A committee of drunk wizards did it after losing a bet. Science does not work like that. Science requires evidence, mechanisms, predictions, tests, something that could, in principle, be shown wrong. Evolution gives us that. Evolution predicts nested genetic relationships. We find them. Evolution predicts transitional fossils in specific layers. We find them. Evolution predicts population change under selection. We watch them. Evolution predicts antibiotic resistance. Hospitals deal with it every day. Evolution predicts reproductive isolation and speciation. We observe it. Creationism, when asked for the same standard, gives us God did it. That may be your faith. That may be theology. That may be personally meaningful to you, but it is not a scientific rebuttal to evolution. And tonight, this is what happened. I gave evidence. He gave religion. I gave mechanisms. He gave assertions. I gave observed evolution. He gave divine hand-waving with a beard. But saying God created everything does not make evolution false. If God exists and used evolution, evolution is still true. If God exists and guided mutations, evolution is still true. If God exists and set up natural selection, then evolution is still true. So unless my opponent can show that mutation does not happen, inheritance does not happen, selection does not happen, populations do not change, species do not form, and genomes do not show common descent, then he has not refuted evolution. He has simply said that he prefers creation, and preference is not evidence. So I thank Israel for the sermon. I thank the audience for surviving through it, and I thank the flying spaghetti monster for blessing us with this obvious conclusion. Evolution is true. Creationism is not a scientific alternative. And if your best argument is you can't disprove my God, then congratulations, you have also failed to disprove my pasta. Ramen.
Thank you so much, Greg. Listen, I want to say I love both of you, and I'm very grateful that both of you were at least, the very least, willing to come join me for a fun show. They don't always all work out, and this would be an instance where we just find a little lock here. But money comes your way. It says I FTFE free Rubik's for the weekend.
No, I don't. Sarah, what do you do with the hostages in your basement? How do you keep them quiet? Because mine is always asking to get out.
Listen, I have dogs, so therefore I have lots of kennels in which I can put the ones in the basement into. Okay.
Oh, so when they want fresh air, you actually let them out?
Not particularly often.
I mean, mine's always asking for water, but I'm like, well, there's a damp corner. Isn't that water? God's sakes.
Speaking of, Aaron says, quickest debate win ever. All hail FTE. And a big shout out. I want to make this one extra special because Tom Carpenter is helping to send Mater out to Vegas to moderate a fun, amazing debate. So be sure, Maters, you know the drill. Any super chats you send, please hashtag Vegas because he is matching dollar for dollar up to 1,000. So continue doing that and help support the cause. Your dollars actually mean double when you hashtag Vegas. But he's going to go sleep his headache off. So he's probably off in slumberland by this point. Spin City says hashtag Vegas baby. What the fuck is evolution? Peck, a member for 22 months. I don't know which side this is on your ends, but
He's
says sending money. Oh, I guess the context is key here. Money for not God. JD grabbing their new membership. Darth Thoran says, I'm an evolution denier. Set me up to debate FTFE. I don't feel like Darth has been in our chat a while. But yes, shout out to you. Aaron
do it.
says,
if you've actually got arguments, do it.
Yeah, I'll go check out and see if they have a channel. Aaron says, don't stop your opponent when he's making a mistake.
Yeah, my bad. I should just let him drop the dirt.
Spin says, there's not an extra E in evolution, sir. Endogenous DMT says, Sarah, you're a lovely lady and a great moderator. Thanks for all that you do. To the evolution defender, how do you respond to criticisms from physicists like Stefan Wolfram that biology isn't a science?
Well, he's wrong. Of course, it's a science. It has predictive capabilities. It has models. It has laws. It has theories. Of course, it's a science.
Okay. Dragon Fist says, Craig got him checkmated by the prompt. Good job, Craig. I'm sensing sarcasm there. Aaron says, evolution is better supported than gravity.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. It's probably the most substantiated scientific theory that we have. And gravity is like ridiculously substantiated.
So there are actually people that debate whether evolution as a mechanism is real or not, though?
Yeah, I think that's what Darth is wanting to do.
I mean, because wouldn't evolution be to some degree, because there was like, if I send in a virus, like a half-assed virus into my body, so that like a vaccine, right? Wouldn't that mutation of that cell mutating to the virus piece, wouldn't that be part of evolution?
Well, it's more like if you look at COVID, how when COVID first appeared and it was killing people left, right, and center, it was extremely deadly, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not, killing your host is not a good thing for a virus to survive. So COVID over time became less deadly and more communicable because that was more beneficial for it to pass on its genes. You kill your host, then you can't pass on your genes. So the extremely deadly, version of COVID died out because it couldn't pass on its genes. That is evolution happening.
All right. Fair enough. Howard sends in the tomatoes just for love. Turtle says Israel is using the Kent Hovind model.
Yeah, you don't want to do
that.
It's the. Do you not know who Kent Hovind is?
No.
Yeah, he basically his arguments were Israel's point for point.
Okay, fair enough. Howard's sending more tomatoes and more tomatoes. Damn it, Howard! If you had just put hashtag Vegas, that could have been an extra $30 in my pocket. It's I'm just going to say
it's a Rubik's. That's my captive.
Oh my God, why did I not see that? I put the emphasis in the wrong places. The stoned ape theory is a fun one to look into. Basically, early hominids, right?
Hominids, yeah.
Hominids ate a bunch of shrooms. Ooh, hell yeah. And that led to consciousness, art, and language. For real?
Yeah, that is a theory. That's where kind of our expanded mind came from, was a bunch of very early ancestors of humans ate a bunch of psychedelics, and that expanded the mind enough to allow us to be who we are.
Now, don't tell the stoners that, because they're going to be like, look at how far it got us, guys. Let's see how much
I've not smoked weed in since the 1st of January. I need a fucking joint.
Yeah, but the shroomers, though, that's a whole nother category, man. It's a whole nother category of people. Burrito says microevolution changes within kinds of adaptation. Within kinds, and adaptation does not equal macroevolution, morphing between species. He keeps pointing to micro as proof of the macro.
Well, then he would need to explain where it stops, because we can look at the London Underground mosquitoes, who were, after the Second World War, trapped underground. And yes, they were still mosquitoes, but they became such a different species to the mosquitoes above that they started surviving on different forms of food, like blood from mammals, and could no longer mate with the species of mosquitoes above ground. They also developed different physical traits and became a very, very different thing. Now, that keeps happening over time, and the fossil records show that it does happen over time, that species do morph, but it takes a long, long time. The problem is when you use micro and macro evolution, you actually need to say, well, where does it stop and where does one start and the other stop? And no one can ever answer the question, well, where does it start? But it also doesn't change the fact that evolution doesn't happen. Even if you want to deny macro evolution, evolution still happens. So it's irrelevant.
Okay. Any thoughts to that, Israel?
Micro, macro. Yeah, I mean, again, Craig addressed it in the beginning, and he said that he doesn't think that that's proof, because if micro works, then macro exists. I would resonate with the commenter's sentiment, because I think that the fact that you can observe minor changes through evolution, I don't think that rationally or scientifically can account for how everything came to be, or how like all life got to this point, especially drastic changes, like huge drastic changes from bacteria to a fish, or from a fish to a cat, or from an ape to a human. I think that you're going to have to defer to a higher power.
It's kind of a useless term in science.
And I would refer to the highest power, which is
the flying spaghetti monster.
God. Again, that's how you call your God. I call my God
the flying spaghetti monster. Bless his noodly appendage.
Oh, goodness. Mr. Hanky asks, is Israel aware of microevolution? Lots of microevolution making macroevolution.
Thank you, Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo.
Christmas poo. Anything to that, Israel? You're welcome.
I mean, yeah, that would be Craig's argument, that all of the micro results in the macro. I don't find that credible. I think what we're dealing with here is so phenomenal and so intricate and so complex. It requires a creator, and I believe in that.
So personal incredulity, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thought so. Brilliant. Thanks for agreeing.
No worries. Prater says all hell FSM and his noodly appendages.
Flying spaghetti monster.
Ryu says all he wants to do is preach, stop platforming him. That's not nice, Ryu. We platform any and everyone here, no matter how much you guys complain. Turtle says, Israel, how old is the earth? Any idea?
I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Hanky. I do kind of like that name, Mr. Hanky. I love spaghetti. Kraut says, Duke keeps asking him to describe how God created the universe, but I bet he can't describe how the universe was created. Craig?
Not once did I ask him how to describe how God created the universe. That question never arises. I asked him to describe how God created man in his image. Nobody knows how the universe was created. All we know is that there was a point back in time when everything existed in a singularity. We don't know what was before that. That question is outside of science, just like I could never disprove there being a God or a flying spaghetti monster or Thor. No one knows how or what started the universe. But maybe watch a different debate, because nowhere in the debate did I ask Israel to explain how God created the universe.
Okay. Rubik's with the big 5 says, I have so many shorts to make from this. You're making me work down here, Craig. Can I get extra water? It must be in the basement, huh?
For God's sakes. Hold on one sec. I told you that there's a damp corner. It's been raining. There's going to be extra water over there. All right. If you keep going on, I'm not going to give you the bread ends this week.
I love it.
Jesus.
I love it. Howard says life is greater than consciousness, greater than existence, greater than meaning, greater than evolution, greater than time, greater than death, greater than recycle. Thank you, Howard. Dragonfist says Craig loves appendages. Shots
Who doesn't
fired.
love a good appendage?
Shots fired. iGal sends in a big 30 of something over to you. Pew Burrito says a bird's peak adapting over time proves the universe came from nothing and life comes from non-life.
Nobody said that. No, that's a very strange thing to get from this debate. I made nothing about life from non-life. I didn't talk about abiogenesis, and I didn't talk about the beginning of the universe.
Caledonian says, Sarah, you should do more early shows for us in Britain. As a Scot, I'm often too drained to come on by the time your show starts. But if you snooze, you lose. We are an aperture of divinity. Yeah.
Hey, Caledonia. Hello from Kirkcaldy.
And I would love to do earlier shows. Trust me, I would love it. My sleep schedule would love it. I call these UK specials if I do anything before 6 p.m. And I'm happy to accommodate accordingly. But my children would much rather me be having dinner with them right now than me sitting down here with you guys. So I do the late night hours when my kids go to bed. So unfortunately, you snooze, you lose, Caledonian. Aaron says, I'm Craig. I want to debate Kent Hovind.
No, I don't want to debate Hovind because he's a woman beater, a child beater, and platforms pedophiles.
Oh, interesting. The fossil record is immensely robust on multiple different lineages. Ignorance of the facts is not an argument, Craig. You won hands down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard says, oh, wait, are we at the time frame? All right, I'm going to just run through these last ones anymore. Nobody gets to interpret existence. We explore it. I've defeated a clown, so evolution must be true. Is evolution incidental or accidental? Bum, bum, bum.
It is accidental. It's mutations that are beneficial, or maybe not even beneficial. They're just the ones that help you adapt to pressures the most.
Monkeys getting high off shrooms, and now we're intellectuals.
That seems pretty deliberate. If we are created with the ability to evolve, to improve our adaptability.
If God's real, maybe he set up the process of evolution over millions and billions of years. But we can never prove there's a God, so hey.
All right, last flu. That was me yesterday, sick in bed all day. The handle says something. Aaron says, thanks to both Israel and Craig. Rock on. Yes, it was still pleasant. I was being serious, Craig. Got it. Ding, ding, ding. Shivak says Stephen Wolfram has never said that biology is not science. Shots fired on that one?
Fight. Cheers, F Grudge.
And last one, Aaron says macro is lots of micro evolution over time. All right, gentlemen, are you ready to meet your panel?
One ready.
All right, those backstage, FYI, camming up gets you priority to the seats. So now's the time to turn that bitch on. Here we go. right, now would be a great time for everyone except for myself, Craig, and Israel to mute your mics, please. Lots of background noise coming in that I absolutely do not want to hear. So if your name is not Craig, Israel, or Sarah, thank you. You are all muted. Okay, here's how we're going to run this drill, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining for the open panel Q&A. This is meant to be a serious portion. We're not going to call each other names and spurg out and go ape shit all over the place. We're going to ask a question and get a solid answer. That's what's going to happen. Now, if you only wanted to ask a question and then you had nothing else to add or contribute or ask or whatever, then you're going to kindly step away from the platform. I do have other people backstage that would like to get in on the Q&A portion. If you do want to stay for the open panel gauntlet, then keep your seat, stay here, don't go anywhere. We're going to go one at a time. We're going to run this drill. So everyone else, except for the 3 people that I originally mentioned and the person that I give way to ask the question, everyone else is going to stay muted during that time. It's one time to ask your question back and forth from either Israel or Craig or both, and you're going to get your responses for a few minutes, and then we're going to move on. All right. Salty Santa, I'm so glad you made it to this one. Please feel free to ask your question, sir.
Thank you. And hello, guys. Craig, Israel, or Rabbi. Are you a rabbi?
You muted Israel, and I think you're lagging.
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to honor the honorific. Now, but in starting out, and I am both of a faith and scientific nature with some occult in there, so I come at this perhaps from a different view. But I do think that it was unfortunate that the assumption was made, because as I understand the reading of the Torah, in the Talmud, words are very important technologically to your faith. Is that true?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so there were a couple of times when you were, I heard that you were averring that all things came from the Genesis story taught in the Torah. And then when I would hear Craig, that's your name apparently, Freedom Eagle.
Craig, yes.
When he would bring these things up, I heard that you guys were going past each other with words mattering. So for example, in a scientific context or jargon, theory doesn't mean a belief without a massive amount of facts. I believe Craig did define that well. Could you accept that he defined that accurately scientifically?
That you need a massive amount of facts in order to come to a conclusion?
Yeah, it's when scientists say theory, they don't mean I have faith in it. They might use the word confidence because it's repeatable. They're able to reproduce it. People in different places can reproduce it, but there is still an amount of faith that scientists don't like either. But a theory is one that's been reproducible, typically.
Sure, yeah. I wasn't interested on debating the technicality of the layman's term of theory versus the scientific term. I understand that Craig's upset about that because people often use the word theory in evolution to discredit it as just a theory. But again, I was not debating the technicality of the word, but more so the idea that through the human mind and human instruments, we have the ability to measure these things. While it's true that we can...
Oh no, we lost him. Uh-oh.
My spaghetti monster got him.
Oh no. What happened?
Well, if he comes back, maybe I can come back on. I know there are other people back there.
Well, hang tight. I'm sure he'll get back up. Clay, did you have a question for Craig by chance?
Well, could possibly imagine that.
I figured his... Oh, wait.
Hey, Clay, how you doing?
Oh, hold on. I got him. I got him. We're back in order. Or hopefully. Sometimes that happens. There we go. All right. Israel is back. Okay, Santa, if you want to... or Israel to Santa, if you want to finish your thoughts.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear like the theme music playing in the background. Does anyone else hear that?
No, there's no music on.
Okay, that's weird.
There is. I'm not even gaslighting this time. I swear, there's no music.
Well, I can hear music. No, I'm joking.
I was going to say, Lord. No,
there might be another window open.
Yeah. Do you have another tab by chance?
Me? No, not at all.
Well, the other part that I would like to go to, or Israel, did you want to answer more on that, or?
Yeah, I don't know where I cut out there, but essentially I was saying that I agree that facts gathered can lead us to reasonable conclusions. I just don't think that it's reasonable for people to claim to know what happened for millions of years, even on the basis of what they perceive is evidence and facts. It still doesn't account for the real truth of the unknown, which I think by definition.
Doesn't that kind of argue against your own position, though? You're saying that people can't know what's happened for millions of years. How would humans know? Or is the Torah the inerrant deposition of what's happened?
Yeah, it's a testimony of the historical events.
And so then by the supremacy of God, God would be able to know, but we as humans would not? Maybe it's the great Satan. Ben, don't roll your eyes at me like that again.
He cut out.
Hey, buddy.
You scared him off, Santa.
I know, I'm bad luck.
Craig is on top of spaghetti one of your church hymns then?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we sing that every day.
I thought so.
Now, if I could then, just continuing with Craig, do you think that there is no faith or space for faith in one's life, or is that just within the confines of this debate that this was a non-spiritual discussion?
Just within the confines of this discussion, I have faith in things. I have faith that my wife loves me. I have faith that my kids are good people. I have faith that I can beat anyone in Mortal Kombat 3 as long as I'm playing Sub-Zero. Faith absolutely is a thing that exists, and I think everybody has faith, but I don't think it was part of this conversation.
Right. Well, thank you. I just want to hear other people's questions. Thank you very much, Sarah, for having me up.
Thank you, Santa.
I love your accent, by the way.
Southeastern.
Yeah, it's nice. Easy to listen to.
Smooth like Tennessee whiskey. All right, Clay, to you, sir.
Cool.
How you doing, Clay?
What's up, brother, man? Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Israel. Thank you, Craig, for coming up and having this conversation, this debate. I think that you guys actually did very well compared to what you're actually probably believing. This is actually kind of how a lot of evolution debates go. This is literally how it essentially goes. I've heard the best of them going at it, and literally it goes, flying spaghetti monster, no, God did it. This is literally how it always goes. I know you guys might think that this is not, it really is. So I want to try to move past the that portion and actually ask some real good questions. So micro and macro, I think, is where a lot of things got hung up. Speciation tends to be the place where observable evolution stops in the theory of evolution. So past that, it would be a best guess. Is that more accurate to say it that way?
Well, no, we look at the evidence of the fossil records and things like that.
So you look at the evidence and then make a best guess.
You see if the model predictions match what you're seeing. So we can predict that through evolution, the model would predict that speciation would happen at certain times based on certain pressures, and we can then check the fossil records to see if it matches the predictions.
So
when you say the guess part comes in hypothesis before the predictions.
So, but when you say fossil record, what you're referring to is things that you can't actually observe evolving. It's a best guess of what happened prior.
Well, we can see that they've evolved from one time to another. We can know the time period that a particular fossil came from and compare it to a fossil from another time period and look at the similarities between them and fit it into the model of evolution. If the predictions of evolution hold up when we're checking the evidence, then it means that the hypothesis hasn't been disproven. We're just following the scientific method.
So it hasn't been disproven, but it hasn't been proven. So what you're actually
there's no such thing as proof in science. That's the thing. Science
doesn't bring proof to the table. Well, this
no,
is actually
there's
one of the things I
literally
wanted to
no
cover,
such thing as scientific proof. That is not a thing.
So
that
there were
happens.
actually a few things that you said that it has nothing to do with reality. Theory is more than fact. Things like that. When you say things like that, then I'm just having a hard time believing anything that you say, because like the way that mathematics works. So my mind actually works based on axioms. Okay. So if we define a thing, 1 equals 1, A equals A cannot be B because B equals B. So when you say reality has nothing to do with this, now all of a sudden we're not having the conversation of what's the origin, what really happened. We're having a theory conversation. This is why when it's called a theory, it's a best guess.
No, that's not what theory means in science. That's the problem that you're having there. The layman's word theory is not the same as a scientific theory. In science, a theory is the highest accolade you can give something. It's higher than fact.
So how are facts not the highest accolade? How is an axiom?
Because a scientific theory contains all of the facts.
No,
mathematics. If you're talking about mathematics, then you've got like
to
set
reach a
theory.
conclusion.
Sorry, if
Science isn't the way to reach a conclusion.
But if you're talking
Axioms
about if you talk about theory, like in mathematics, you got like set theory and things like
set
that.
theory, right?
Which
that's why you have
just
paradoxes.
contains all the information and facts
why we have
about that thing.
paradoxes, and
So
that
in
means
science, hold on, let me answer the question.
Let him finish.
In science, a theory is higher than a fact because it contains all of the facts.
I'm sorry,
it does not mean
we'll
a
move past
guess
this
at all,
Let him
right?
finish.
That's not what it means in the slightest. In
Well,
fact,
he's just gonna
when you
say
look
the
at the
same thing
etymology
over
of
and
the
over
word
again at
theory,
this point.
hold on. When you look
I
at the
don't believe
etymology, when you look at the etymology of the word theory,
I just don't believe you.
I don't care if you believe me or not.
Okay, well, you keep saying the same thing over. I want to move past it.
Can I answer the question?
Okay, hold on.
Can I answer the question?
Hold on. Yeah,
You already
Clay.
did.
Clay,
No, I
at the very
haven't. I
least-
haven't answered the
Clay,
question.
Clay.
No, I haven't.
Clay, let him finish his thought. Even if you think he's repeating himself, that's fine. Then just press on to your next thought. Okay?
It doesn't matter if you don't believe me about what a scientific theory means. The etymology of the word theory actually had the scientific version appear before the layman version of it of just a guess. Theory in science does not mean just a guess. Theory is higher than fact because it contains all of the facts. And it really doesn't matter if you believe me or not, because this is just how it is.
So you got your degree down at the the river. So here's the thing.
No, I got my degree from the University of West of England and my second degree from Napier University while I was studying in the military.
Down by the river. Yes, I know. So I want to understand why it is that you said medicine is evolution. See, medicine is.
I didn't say medicine is evolution once.
No, you actually did. I heard that.
No, I didn't.
That was clear as day. In fact, I
literally never said those words.
I pointed it out to Ant, and Ant refused to admit it in the chat that medicine.
I did not say medicine is evolution. I did not say that.
Hold on. Was this when I was talking about the mutation thing and he mentioned the COVID thing?
Yes.
I didn't once say medicine is evolution. I never said those words.
Evolution takes a lot of credit where it doesn't exist. So you don't.
Evolution does exist.
You're going to back off of it. Fine. That's great.
I never said
happy
medicine
you're
is
backing off of
evolution.
it
You are
because
trying
it's
to
not
gaslight me.
evolution.
I never said those words.
It absolutely was something that you said. You take.
It wasn't. I bet you $5,000 that I never said medicine is evolution.
Now I want to move past this.
No. I bet you $5,000 that I never said.
I don't believe you. Again, I don't believe you.
Well, then take the bet.
You don't bet me, bro. I'm not into betting. Like I'm not a gambling man. I'm a fucking man.
Well, I accept.
All right, let's find some point. Do you have a point to go forward on whether he said it was or was not, Clay?
Yeah, I have more questions. So why is it that when this conversation happens, I want to actually pull it back to the micro versus macro. Why is it that whenever the macro conversation comes up, the micro is the hang up, right? So the evolutionary theory is not just on microevolution. It is about macroevolution. And I think Israel was right on point, pointing this out, that you wanted to get hung up on adaptation, mutation, these things that evolution in your mind is claiming, but all of a sudden, we're not going to talk about macroevolution. We're not going to talk about where was the origin. So your facts don't line up with your actual beliefs.
Nothing to do with the origin.
Yeah, so it doesn't have anything to do with reality.
Claims about the origin.
No, gotcha. No, I'm going to go ahead and pass it, because essentially you are telling everyone that axioms don't matter, that reality doesn't matter. I never said that at all. Facts don't matter. Yes, this is actually exactly.
No, I never said any of that. You're just making that up.
Exactly the way you're treating it. You're saying the origin. You're making
all of this up inside your head.
You said it. You just said.
No, I didn't say it.
Doesn't matter. Holy shit, bro!
I never said any of that in the slightest.
Yes. Keep backing off of it. Keep backing off of it.
I'm not backing off because I never said it in the first place.
All right, let's move on. Andrew, thank you, Clay. I love your spice. I do love your spice. Andrew, your question or comment to either of the gentlemen, please. You are muted, sir.
Thank you, Sarah. My question is for Craig. Craig, great to see you, man.
Hello, Andrew. How you doing?
How are you, sir? So obviously, I wasn't being sarcastic with what I said. I do think you got him. You had him checkmated with the prompt. You're very good at that, at choosing prompts that you know you can use it, or maybe they come to you, because it's happened to me too with you. You're good at looking at the prompt and checkmating people. I'm giving it to you. Great debater. I would have pushed back a little bit on a few pieces. You're clearly right that this mechanism exists. I would say we don't know exactly what's going on yet, because there are things, I'm sure you're more versed in it than me, but things like epigenetics, right? And there's studies on this where they take the mice and they shock them every time they go into the tunnel with the light. And then like all the mice get the trait not to go in that tunnel. Same thing happened with wolves, right? Like wolves weren't afraid of people here in the United States. And then all the wolves, like once they started being attacked, it wasn't like an evolutionary thing. It was like a signal that went out to all of them. And this is recreated. They've done studies on this. Am I wrong on my premise?
I don't know enough about that side of it to answer the question, if I'm honest. But what I can say in response is that science never claims to have all of the answers. Science is always open to there being a better explanation that can come along. That's why I said to Clay, and he freaked the fuck out, that there's no such thing as scientific proof, because we don't claim to have absolute proof of anything. We are aware that there can always be a better explanation.
Fair enough. So that's how I would have pushed back on it. And also when he brought up God spoke, and you were like, what's the mechanism by which he changed things? And he's saying God spoke, which is actually a legitimate mechanism. Like we know sound waves affect matter, right? Is that true?
Well, everything affects matter, but
right,
just
so you
saying
can play a sound, you see matter
there would still need to be an actual underlying mechanism as to how those sound waves turned nothing into people.
No, that wouldn't be correct. You only ask for the mechanism, and I'm telling you that like if it's God's sound waves, clearly they're more powerful than us turning on a sound that puts sand into a good geometric pattern, right? But we see it happen. That's the mechanism. So like the Bible is taking these terms like God spoke and existence came. They're describing the vibration. You can translate it into scientific terms that actually make sense. You can't take every word literally, but they're describing something that in theory could have actually happened. And I think that's what he was trying to say. And if that's the case, that's true, I think he was also trying to say that then none of this matters. Like it could have just been built with all these details in, and we're missing vast differences in those fossil records that you said we had them all, but you know we don't have them all. There's no like half man, half ape. There's vast.
We are an ape. There really isn't. Well, technically, every time we find a fossil, gives us more missing links.
Correct. Then you get two more. Right. You need another middle.
But you know we have more than enough transitional fossils to show that A came to B, came to C, came to D. Right. But you know, to your point, right, I entirely agree. Right. If there is God, a creator above all, that has the powers to do it, then maybe they did create everything and they gave the mechanism of evolution to biological life. I mean, I can't deny that because, I'm an atheist, but I'm also a logical person that understands that I can't ever disprove a God because that's outside of science. So did God set the universe in motion? Did God start the Big Bang? Did God give biological life the ability to evolve? I don't know. I don't know there's a God.
That's all. I'm not really I agreed with you. I think you won the debate. Great job, Craig.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Have a nice day.
You too, sir.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, natural selectionist, welcome. Go ahead and ask your question to either of the gentlemen,
That is an
please.
epic beard, my friend.
Thank you. So my question is for Craig. As somebody who, like you, believes in evolution, one thing that I've noticed about a lot of people who are very gung-ho about their belief in evolution is that it very rarely affects anything else about their life. So, for example, like a lot of people on the left are very gung-ho about their belief in evolution, and yet they want to go gay, turn trans, abort their babies, choose to be child-free, none of which helps maximize the continued survival of their genes, which you would expect that to be a goal in their life if they believe in the theory of evolution, and that continuing to maximize the survival of your genes would be something you'd expect them to want if that's what's worked for the survival of everything throughout the entire history of life on Earth. Reproduction has been a part of our lives for literally billions of years, since long before our ancestors evolved into humans. So my question for you would be, in what way does your belief in evolution actually affect either your political beliefs or your personal life or your behaviors beyond just believing that it happened?
It doesn't. I understand that it happened, and it holds no, basis on like anything political or anything like that. I just like gravity, I know that it exists. But I do need to push back a little on what you said. It's not necessarily true that maximizing your genes is good for evolution. Evolution is about adaptation to environmental pressures, for instance, right? So let's say that the environmental pressure was there was less resources available. But in that case, having less people around would actually give the species more chance of surviving, because then, less people could still get enough nutrients to be able to pass on their genes, right? There wouldn't be as many people, but there would be an adaptation in the species that allowed you to maybe take in less nutrients. And then maybe when more resources became, then the species could grow again. It is not necessarily true that having more people means the species will continue.
Well, but it's still about making sure that your genes propagate into the future. So taking
not necessarily my genes. It's the genes that are beneficial to adapt to pressures. I might not have the genes,
but
that
your
are
genes are still
to the
yours, and so you, as an organism, it would still be in your interest to propagate the survival of your genes.
Yeah, but in my interest isn't what evolution is. I'm very tall, right? I'm 6'1". So if there was, an environmental pressure that was against tall people, then I'd be more likely to die out, and short people would be the ones that were more likely to pass on their genes. It's not necessarily about you wanting to pass on your genes to continue the species. That's not what evolution is. Evolution is just beneficial mutations that are able to be passed on to your descendants.
In a theoretical sense, maybe, but as a participant in the process of evolution, every single organism's desire should be to continue to propagate the survival of their genes.
Well, of course, I had 2 kids because I wanted my genes and my my name to pass on. But that's fundamentally different from what evolution is. It's not, it has nothing to do with wants or desires. Like someone at PhD Tony in my chat says, gene propagation is distinct from the interest of the individual.
Well, sure, but just like if you believe in the theory of gravity, you're probably not going to jump off a building because gravity is going to pull you down and kill you. Well, if you believe in the theory of evolution,
the ground, right? Because the ground's really big.
Sure, but it just boggles my mind that people who believe in evolution put basically it has no effect whatsoever on anything else that they believe, even though it really should be something that's informing how you think about political issues, how you think about social structures, and whether or not
I disagree. It's just like air. It's a fact of life that exists, and it does not, it doesn't affect how I behave. I just know it's a thing. I personally want my genes to continue. That's why I had children with my wife, because that's what I want. But my personal needs and wants are completely separate from evolution as a species.
Well, using air as your example, I mean, if you need to breathe air, you would want there to be clean air, so you might support policies that keep the air clean. If you believe in evolution and you believe that the continued survival of your genes matters, then you should probably support policies that...
But again, evolution isn't necessarily the continued survival of my genes. Evolution is the beneficial genes of an entire species that allow that species to adapt to environmental pressures. And that might not be my genes. Right, I've got a tendency to get like really bad knees and tennis elbow when I'm at the gym. That might not be beneficial to pass on those genes. Doesn't change the fact that I wanted to have children, but in a world where you might need knees that don't give out like mine have, then that might not be the beneficial gene to pass on. So again, my personal wants and needs and the want to pass on my genes so that my lineage continues is completely distinct from evolution of a species as a whole.
All right, I think we can move on to the next person.
Perfect.
Right,
thank you,
appreciate
natural selectionist. Wonderful questions as well. Fits of Rage, welcome, my friend. Feel free to ask your question to either Israel or Craig.
Yeah, I preemptively facepalmed when I read the prompt because I knew it was basically going to go just like that. So Israel, so I'm a Christian who accepts the established age of the earth and shared common ancestry. So to kind of focus in on one narrow area, I was thinking, are you much familiar with the human chimp split?
No, tell me.
Okay, so it's actually one of the areas we have really solid fossil evidence is dating back to roughly 7 million years ago. We've got Sahelanthropus chilensis, Ardipithecus ramidus. Of course, when I'm on camera, I can't pronounce them. You might be familiar with Australopithecus afarensis, Lucy, Australopithecus sediba, Homo erectus, Homo georgicus, and plenty others. And they all just throughout geologic time gradually look more like modern humans. We've got back to Australopithecus afarensis. It goes. We can tell it's bipedal. It walked on 2 legs because it's got the hole in the base of the neck instead of the back of the neck for the spine to go into. Its hip is arranged in that knuckle walking or any kind of quadrupedal motion would be absolutely painful. So just that fossil evidence shows, something that's not, and it's not like a chimp morphing into a human. It's, one fossil that has a lot of shared traits with both humans and chimps. And then when it splits, we don't have as much chimps, if I remember correctly, at least, much that in the line for the chimp, but we see things that become gradually more human-like. So I think that would be a good place to look into because, I feel like, humans sharing ancestry with chimps is where most people have like their biggest hang up. Like a lot of people would say like, okay, sure, like all the other life shares ancestry, but I refuse to believe that humans share ancestry with another animal. If I have a specific question. But.
No, I see your point. I appreciate the education on the topic. And again, like in a lot of ways, we're talking past each other deliberately because we're interested in different questions. Are we interested in the mechanism in which things happen, or are we interested in who is behind that mechanism? And at the same time, it's no coincidence that Craig is an atheist and I'm a theist, because if you're an atheist, you're looking for a mechanism that can justify existence without a higher power acting upon it. And if you're a theist, you just see and feel and believe and ultimately know that it's clear that there is a higher power that's acting upon this reality. And especially when you look at it in the context of human beings and you see the vast divide, even if you can, obviously human beings are creatures of this earth, so we're going to resemble the other animals on this earth in terms of being made up of the same matter, even the biblical account, we're made up of the matter of this earth. Even the fact that we resemble apes is obviously undeniable. At the same time, there's a qualitative difference between humans and animals in every single respect. And that's where the concept of the image of God comes from. And so I think it's extremely necessary as people who can see the divinity in existence instead of mocking it to actually really take this seriously and understand that the main point is that God is the one who's behind this. And he is the one who puts this all into motion. And there's a great deal of faith to that, but faith is not something to be mocked. Faith is righteousness.
Yeah. And that's why I tend to prefer debates on the topic of evolution or the age of the earth when they're like two Christians debating, because then that keeps the topic from getting sidetracked into God existing or not. It can just focus on the scientific evidence generally. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it'll go into how do you reconcile believing in God and thinking that humans share common ancestry. That gets a little tricky at times.
Well, yeah, I mean, some aspects of the shared traits between humans and apes is undeniable. So again, like, Craig wanted me to deny things that are undeniable. That's not a good operating basis. There are clearly things in existence that are observable and are that way. However, again, like this claim that human beings can track the age of the universe and track the age of the earth and assume that their limited perspective and understanding and their limited instruments that they created are strong and powerful enough to make sense of millions of years of life, as if they know what happened, because they have, again, fragments. As much as they're going to continue to yell in your face, they would have to fill up a space as big as the Grand Canyon, pile mountain highs of bones in order to actually prove this. They're dealing with fragments, and based off of those fragments, they're making conclusions. They're making conclusions that the earth always was this way, that their instruments are correct, that they know how to measure these things, that they can come to these conclusions, which again is faith in the human mind. It's faith in the human faculties. I don't put faith in human beings. I put faith in God.
So we do have, there's a fossil specimen that's referred to as Littlefoot. It's an Australopithecus afarensis that we have a lot of it, like 80-something%, I think, of the bones in its body we found. And since, human or mammals are all bilaterally symmetrical, meaning, everything on the left side is mirrored on the right side. If something's just missing on the left side, we can say, okay, it's going to look like what's on the right side. So we have, and based on all the other specimens of that species, we can be very confident in what that species looked like. And like I said, it's not just the similarities; it's the gradual becoming more similar to us. And like the big creationist organizations, AIG, IRC, ICR, they all differ on where they think the line is on the hominids, or hominins. I think I said for some hominids, on where it's actually becomes a human and when it was just an ape. So even they can't agree, what's a human and what's not in that set of specimens.
Yeah, again, as religious people, we have to be careful not to speak too out of context as well. Not to make claims that are beyond our understanding. Like if scientists genuinely are finding evidence of previous worlds that existed, of previous species and all these things that are not even present today, I think we can even read the Bible in a way that's that aligns with that, in the sense that the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, as in it's setting up that all the way back to the beginning, God is the creator and he's behind everything. And then it continues with the story of the earth being dark and desolate and chaotic and full of water, right? So you can even picture that, even from a scientific perspective, there were eras of the earth in which it was completely destroyed or frozen over, right? And so you can even read the Genesis account that God was coming to a destroyed, dark, empty, chaotic world full of water, and then breathed light and life and order into that chaos and darkness, and just frozen over world. So there are ways to reconcile. It all depends like how eager you are to reconcile science with the Bible. But ultimately, I think that when it boils down to it, the main point is that are human beings the ones who determine all these things? Are we the ones who decide what's true and false, or do we defer to a force above our own understanding and power and capacity to look above ourselves? And then when we look at the documents that were preserved by our ancestors, and we look at these religious texts, we're seeing that human beings have always been concerned with the divine and have always been in communication, really, with the divine to some extent or another. And I just believe that when you read the Bible, it's quite a majestic interaction between man and God, and that is certainly more interesting to me than anything else.
Well, I should probably see what my wife's calling about, so I'll go ahead and pass it on.
Nice talking.
Thank you, Fitz. And I'm going to do what everyone else wanted to do. I'm going to sing it. Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals. All right, and moving on to you, sir. Your question, please.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to first posit that in these kinds of debates, we see as what I would consider a domain error, right? We see religion trying to map itself to natural explanations for what we observe, and then we see science trying to question faith, matters of faith in the Bible sometimes. Not often, but we do see it, right? So I guess the question I have is, could you agree, Israel, that perhaps this is what is causing this friction, that maybe we should just respect each other's domains, what we excel at, like let nature explain how we're getting these things, and religion can tackle the whys and the bigger questions of, why we're here, what brought us here, etc.
Yeah, I think to a degree that's fair, and that's why I would concede it immediately. In a lot of ways, our worldviews are mutually exclusive, and Craig agreed to that too. Craig's like, I'm not here to attack your faith in God. I'm just telling you, like, evolution's a fact. And so yeah, in a lot of ways, we are speaking about different things, and we have different expertise or different values. The concern that I have is when the scientific enters into the domain of the religious and actually begins to define things that are unknowable, and serves as an alternative to the religious narrative. Because again, the reason why evolution requires millions and millions of years in order to come about from a scientific perspective is because they're not including the possibility of or the probability or the fact that a higher power acted upon the earth. They're saying if all of this had to happen without anyone getting involved, this is how long it would take, right? But when you come from a place of faith, you're not going to view things that way. You're going to say, no, God speaks and things are. And why would we limit the power of God in order to match with our timeline that we think that we came up with? I don't think that's really. I think that there is crossover, and that's really what I aim to tackle today in the conversation.
Why do you think, like, an evolutionary biologist would say that evolutionary changes take hundreds, or it's not, maybe not hundreds, but millions to hundreds of millions of years? Why would they say that if it's not? I mean, what's the basis for it?
Well, I think they're saying it because they're assuming that God could not have made the process speed up, or that God could not have created. Or that God could not have created mutual, like, different species, rather like, oh, these things had to morph into each other, and this is how much time it would take. But if you believe that God could come and just make the process, speed it up, then what is the need for all these millions of years? And again, I'm not saying it's impossible that it's true. Maybe that's what happened. I just don't think it's a fact, the way that the scientists presented, and in the way that they present evolution is to present how life came about without a divine hand, and it really does end up just replacing the God narrative. And Craig is like mocking me for mentioning what's taught in schools, but it's genuinely important, because there was a time when the Bible was taught in schools. Now the Bible has been removed from school, and they learn evolution, and so kids walk around saying, oh, how did we all get here? Oh, just species evolved over millions of years, and now humans, monkeys, we're all just like the same, and it pretty much, I don't know why we are unique, but just evolution. We're like the mosquitoes in the basement or something. I mean, this is like, I think it's fundamentally a problem when we try to substitute God for naturalism, like for materialism, when we try to substitute the divine perspective with the human perspective. And I think when you look at the Bible and you look at religion as a whole, it's as imperfect as religion is, and that's a different conversation. It's attempting to bring up the divine hand, that which is above us, and to understand things from a frame that I think is actually much more important and consequential than the scientific frame.
So you don't think that somebody could be a scientist and have faith?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think that there are scientists who have faith. A lot of the original scientists, the fathers of science, were faith-based people. I wouldn't say that they can't have faith. I would just say that when people place too much stock in their own personal view of the universe and their own study of reality, which is what science is. Science is the human study of reality. I think when that happens, we lose sight of the fact that there is an intelligence that is above us. There is an existence that is above us, and that we didn't create this, and our knowledge is extremely limited. And we should just operate with a lot more humility than I think science seems to operate with.
Well, I will always advocate humility, because obviously we don't know everything, probably can't know everything, but forgive me, I lost my train of thought for a second.
We lost Israel too.
Shit. Well, did Craig want to hop in on that? I mean, he could answer the question from our perspective, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having faith. In fact, throughout history, most of the main scientists, if you were men of God.
Exactly.
There's no reason why you can't have faith in a greater power and still look to science for answers about the world that we live in.
If Sarah doesn't mind me plugging a different channel.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know who Clint Laidlaw is, of Clint's Reptiles? He has a fantastic little mini series of videos to reconcile evolutionary biology with creationism, because Clint is a former atheist, but he's also an evolutionary biologist. So clearly he understands evolution. He doesn't, he knows it's true, but he's reconciled it with his beliefs. I think it's a very valuable watch for anybody who's got questions there and would like answers, because I can't answer the faith side of it. I'm sorry. The rest of us can go to the open panel. I apologize.
Sure, no problem, Anne. This was all great, and thank you for the plug too, because I know everybody likes to find different, resources and places to view other different types of information. So I appreciate it. Effigy, you little monkey, to you, sir. Your question or comment to Craig or Israel.
I can't help it. I have evolved.
I love you so much.
Yeah, tonight has been a fantastic example of why presuppositionalism breaks your brain. Once again, see, and he actually gave it away. Israel gave it away in his last answer before I even got up here to give the question. The problem is, whenever science answers a question, presuppositionalists take it personally, and they can't stand that one thing is explained by not their God. And so this is why every time Israel tries to talk about the explanatory power, even in his closing, he tried to, it still drifted off to, explaining everything and the origin of everything and everything. That's how their brain works, because the answer for everything for them is always God. So Israel, since you are definitely, a presuppositionalist creationist and had no intention of talking in the evolutionist framework, which is fine. I'm just going to skip evolution questions, and I'm going to ask you some creationist questions. So mundane things in evolution all of a sudden become pretty horrific things in creationism. So how do you explain to me the problem of things like teleological evil, things that built into the creation of the world, the way creatures are interacting to us are evil, say like a species of insect whose children can only live in the eyeballs of mammals, including human children. So why would God create, since you have been arguing this whole night that he is intimately involved in every little shift of creatures changing and being, why would he create things that can only live in the eyeballs of children?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I definitely resonate with your pain over that reality. But speaking of presuppositions, you're presupposing that you understand right and wrong, and that you would run the world better if you were in control. I think that's why faith is all encompassing, and that's why I do refer back to God whenever I'm discussing something, is because when you're speaking of faith, faith is not just how reality came to be. It's not just how species got to this point. Faith is also to explain questions of evil and suffering that you bring up, and questions of the unknowable things about existence that are so beyond our comprehension and understanding. Some people choose to believe that's a random nothingness. Some people choose to believe that that's meaningful, deliberate actions by God, despite the fact that it's painful to believe that, and we don't understand it and we disagree with it. The book of Job in the Bible does a very good job explaining that, where Job is a righteous man who does everything right, and then God still tests him and destroys his life, and Job is led to the point of questioning God immensely, but ultimately never curses God, because he never curses the actual existence that brought him forth. So he doesn't curse God, so he doesn't undermine existence, but he questions it and is very pained by it. And ultimately God's response to him is, well, you don't understand why I do what I do. And that's really where the faith comes from. It comes from the fact that we realize that we don't understand anything about reality. That's why I'm going big picture, because we don't just exist in a narrow laboratory. We exist in the existence that spans this earth and beyond, and we have to appeal to God in order to relieve ourselves of the burden of pretending to know why things happen or how things happen.
Yeah, but it seems like you're trying to shift your ignorance onto us. Just by saying we can't understand things is giving up before you try. Everyone else on Earth can put their mental energy into things and figure them out. But you saying, but because you believe in the nature of the universe is this, that we shouldn't even try to know, which is what you seem to be saying. You're like, because all we're doing is trying to replace your answer of God did it with an actual explanation. It just doesn't seem to fly, man.
I mean, do you claim to understand why the bugs live in children's eyes?
Yeah, evolution.
That's not a why. That's like,
it is.
Okay, things are that way.
But it's an explanation of how. Like, science isn't going to give you whys, though. Like that first off, science is going to give you hows.
Exactly. So yes. So
you want whys, you're going to have to talk philosophy and stuff like that. But when we're talking about evolution and science, we're talking about the mechanisms that we can prove.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
and a mundane explanation in evolution would have no ill intent and be not a direct intentional cause of suffering. There's no way that you can make the argument that it's not an intentional cause of suffering for those insects that burrow into the eyeballs of children to exist in your worldvue.
Yeah, I believe that everything's intentional.
Cool. And I mean, that's I'm not going to belabor the point, so I'll switch on to my next question. So also, how do you explain incompetent design? How do you explain things like the laryngeal nerve in a giraffe that goes 15 feet when it could go 2 inches? How do you explain human genetics where, humans have the gene to make their own vitamin C? It's just turned off or broken. How do you explain things that obvious from a human perspective we could fix in an engineering, state like automatically? We'd be like, this is broken, this is wrong. We could do that. From our limited understanding, we can fix that. Why is it not that way in these animals? We have a good explanation. It evolved that way because it had evolved that way previously, and that's why those things were already there. Mm-hmm. But for you have to tell us that all these things were made incompetently, inefficiently, or dangerously, intentionally.
Okay, so I mean, again, for you to look at existence and call incompetence, I think, again, is just an example of arrogance. Like, who are you to decide what is considered competence and what's considered incompetence? You can't create anything other than your little machine. So who are you to decide?
We're us. We literally invented the idea of competence.
Yeah, but so you are casting your judgment on an existence that pre-existed you, that is beyond anything you could ever create, and say, oh, this is incompetent. I could come up with a better solution.
We invented the idea of the thing you just described.
Damn it, Israel.
It's always a pass the buck. This is why it's so tough debating with presuppositionalists. Every time you make an argument,
really hard to deal with.
All they do is like, well, I leapfrogged back before and we did it and we made that thing that you just did, or something like that. And you can't possibly understand. We're literally talking about the dearth of human knowledge, and you're like, you can't possibly understand. It was like, well, we're making a good go at it, man. It's better than saying God did it for literally everything.
We lost Israel for a second, but I'm sure he'll be back again. It's either Temu internet or Temu bandwidth. I'm not sure which one it is, but it is kicking his ass today. I think if you want to know who won the debate, it is his Wi-Fi tonight. That's for a fact. Effigy, was that all for your question to Israel?
Yeah.
All
Creationism,
right.
dumb.
Would you mind if I put you backstage and then reserve your seat for Gauntlet here when we get there?
I do not.
Thank you. I'm going to tuck you back for a second.
I've got about 20 minutes left in me, Sarah.
All right. I love you. All right.
Get in there before Craig leaves.
Next, let's see. K.O. Dave, I believe you are next on the list, sir.
Okay. Hi. Israel. I'm wondering, how exactly is it that, so Craig pointed out all these fossils, right, that share similarities with humans and also with like other great apes, right? Or there's fossils that share similarities between humans and bats, right? How is it that how do you square the existence of these fossils that seem to trace through time some sort of change that flows through time towards
how do I square
the species? How do you square
again,
that with like your beliefs?
I don't claim to know what happened all that time ago. I don't claim to know exactly what took place. I'm just saying that the fact that there are similarities between humans and other creatures on this earth does not mean that we came from the same ancestor. It does not mean that it happened exactly the way scientists claim that it happened. It does not mean that God wasn't involved in that process. And it also doesn't mean that we are not fundamentally different as created by God and engineered particularly to be created in his image. I don't think we can draw comparisons between humans and animals in any real way, other than, again, you can point to biological similarities, but that's not going to account for the vast divide between humans and animals.
Okay. Craig.
Hello.
Hi. So these fossils I've pointed out, right?
Yes.
How exactly is it that a paleontologist, for example, would uncover these fossils and look at them and say, hey, there seems to be similarities between this fossil and some other set of fossils? How is it exactly that they trace that from that to like the conclusions that have come about in like the course of our understanding of evolution?
Well, they can look at, like I said, the similarities that they have, like digits being at the end of limbs and flanges being in certain places, and hips being designed a certain way, and the fact that pretty much every species we can look and say, well, we can see that you look at a cat and it's got hips and a rib cage and a head and a neck, and very similar to a human, right? They're arranged slightly different now because the pressures in the environment change that to for the cat over time to the human. But then we can say, well, if they've got these similarities, then maybe there's another link at some point that was more like both of them, and you can make a prediction based on where you think in the timeline that might have come. And then when you find a fossil and you date that fossil and you notice that the similarities apply to both of them, and it all just fits the puzzle together. And that's what you do with a model. When you get a model with like evolution, you make predictions with it, and then when you find the evidence, you see if that evidence fits your prediction. If it doesn't, then your hypothesis is wrong, and then you kind of have to start again. It's just about looking and seeing if the similarities are there, and then if the model matches, the predictions match the model based on the new evidence that you find, and then you update your hypothesis as you go along.
Right. So would you say that it's about both the explanatory power and the predictive power of the model?
Yeah. A model has to have both. A model can't just not explain things or not predict things, and not every model is 100% accurate, but every model is obviously useful for making predictions and testing against what the model says should happen.
Right. Israel, earlier you've said a few times, like, scientists would need like a pile of fossils the size of the Grand Canyon to make these connections, right? Is that like part of your model?
What do you mean?
Like, is that part of your model for like, is that like a prediction that you made from your model of the universe in order to explain why it is that scientists don't really have the answers that they claim they have?
Well, no, I mean, it's just a turn of phrase to describe what is lacking in the scientific theory of evolution, is that there are these gaps in these predictions that are being made, and there's assumptions being made. Now, again, I'm not saying it's completely irrational, and I'm not saying it's impossible either. I'm just saying that it's ultimately a prediction based off of a human interpretation, based off of being measured by human instruments, assuming that your instrument is able to trace back these events, assuming that if there were like world catastrophes that wouldn't alter the quality of the fossil, maybe misconstruing it and having it look different. Like, I mean, there's so many ways in which you can point to the limitations of human beings and their instruments, that unless you could literally trace like 1, 2, 3 these fossils, you're dealing with a hell of a lot of predictions and assumptions, as opposed to a clear laid out observable evidence, which is what they're trying to say it is.
What is it like, where do you see these assumptions exactly? Because there are assumptions, to be clear, and the tools aren't perfectly precise. Like, every tool that we use has some built-in level of uncertainty that you have to take into account, right, in order to make a scientific measurement that will be accepted by your peers. Because if you just quote a measurement and then you don't quote the error, no one will accept what you say. So where do you see these assumptions and these uncertainties exactly in these models that have been put forth?
Well, I mean, you just said it yourself. There are gaps in the fossil record, and there are limitations of the instruments. Now, to scientists, that still doesn't stop them from coming to these conclusions. To me, I'd like to say that having gaps that can consist of thousands, if not millions, of years, getting again fragments of fossils, not even entire fossils, again with instruments that are designed by human beings. And one thing we haven't even talked about is the incentive for corruption within the scientific institution. Like, this faith in science is a faith that all the people representing science are good faith individuals who just want to know the truth. Like, do you understand that every single institution is subject to corruption, and ultimately you're dealing with the possibility of people altering the evidence just to have certain conclusions that will replace God and make them the authorities over society, which suspiciously is what has happened in the past, let's say, 100 years of scientific evolution. And we've seen more and more takeover of the scientific institution over society, and less of, say, faith-based ideologies having a hold in society. So there's clearly an incentive on all levels, and we've seen even the COVID phenomenon and the things that went on there, the corruption of the government and how it plays in with the medical system and the scientific institutions. Many respected scientists would say things like, men could become women, and all these kind of bizarro world things that, I think, again, as one of the previous, I think Mr. Natural Selection has pointed out, like, where is the linkage between these beliefs and how they play out in your life? I think it's quite clear that just blindly following science and their conclusions is not going to take you to a good place.
I would agree with that. Just blindly following is probably never a good idea. But I'll just leave it off with this. When scientists do science, they do actually take into account these uncertainties, and they do take into account the gaps in their knowledge. We don't like when we know that there is like gaps in our knowledge, we're honest about it. And part of the system is the peer review system, and that part of the system is an important measure to stopping corruption. It's not perfect, of course, but it's an important part, because if someone is like throwing out crap, right, like scientific gobbledygook, then their peers will call them out on it. Basically, that's the idea. And so I'll just leave it at that. That there are actually like these built-in mechanisms in the scientific like community for taking into account uncertainties and taking into account possibility of corruption, and none of it's perfect. And that's kind of part of the point, is to be humble about it, but to still try to model the world that we see.
Perfect.
Yeah, and again,
all right. Let me move on to, only because Craig is on timestamp now. So did any of my remaining four, Borg, Kraut, PhD, or Ben, have a question specifically for Craig? Okay. I'm assuming Borg, Kraut, and PhD are going for Israel. Okay. All right. Ben, why don't you ask your question to Craig? That way we can get his butt out of here if he so chooses.
Obviously, the big problem in the evolution debate is you keep listing adaptions which remain in the genetic code, which I have no problems with. You can take a wild pig looks nothing like a kept pig, but you leave that kept pig out in 2 years, it looks just like a wild pig. It's just genetic markers flipping on and off for conditions. That's not really evolution, and it remains in their genome the entire time. So what we're talking about here is a species jump, something that you failed to actually list. Like in things like you can't name who the ancestor is that derives both humans and bats from.
Well, first
you
of all,
lots of fossil records. Name me the specific fossil.
First of all, I disagree that if you leave a kept pig out, it's going to flip some genetic markers and become a wild pig. That's just fundamentally incorrect. But you know, I
been around a pig, have you?
Yeah, they're certainly not going to develop the things that a wild hog has from a. You know, they're it's like if you leave a border collie out in the woods, it's not going to become a wolf. You know.
Oh yeah,
but
they do. You should look.
No, they really don't become a wolf. They don't all of a sudden, get larger and their hips change shape and stuff.
Your example, mine that you're trying to make me agree with yours. Mine, you might want to look that up before running your mouth. Now, list me that fossil. Now, the important part was where you list me that fossil. We're both.
But I don't know the specific name of the specific fossil, and I don't need to. Because I don't need to.
Because nobody knows. Because they think it possibly was a field mouse.
To quote Einstein, you don't need to know every single equation of everything when you got books to look things up in. You can just look at the fossil records and go, well, we can see where the lineage is. It's here.
Do any of those books contain the specific fossil?
Maybe.
No.
Are you sure? Have you looked?
Yes, I looked it up. I also looked up your little mosquito game.
The London Underground mosquito.
This is fun, where you tried to make it jump into a new species. And
I didn't say it was
here's fun. Yeah, you did. You very specifically.
No, I didn't. I said it was different enough that it could no longer interbreed with the species that it evolved from.
A 2004 study analyzing the DNA microsatellite suggested that it might be a distinct species, but a paper from 2012 reported it to be a physiological and ecological variant of CX pipiens, which should not be considered a distinct species. As of 2024, you made it out. You made it out, bro. They couldn't.
No, you're making assumptions about what I said. I didn't say that.
You said different species.
I did not say those words.
As of 2024, the consensus among researchers is that it is not a distinct species, but a form of a form of Culex pipiens, which is often referred to as Culex pipiens F. molestus.
Yeah, I never said it was a distinct species. I said it was different enough from the.
It was a different species. That's why it couldn't crossbreed with the other.
I literally never said it was a different species. I said it was different enough. I said it was still a mosquito, but it was different enough that it could no longer
tell me who the common
can I respond, please?
The fossil.
Dude, you need to let me actually respond. I never once said it was a different species.
I'm short of time. I got to get all your bullshit out at once.
Yeah, dude, I never said it was a different species. I never said that once. Those words did not leave my mouth.
You absolutely did.
No, I 100% did not.
You
I said
definitely
that
did.
it was different enough that it could no longer interbreed with the
said it was a
mosquitoes that
different
it had
species.
evolved
Those
from.
words came out. That's why I looked it up.
No, I did not say it was a different species.
Yeah.
No, I did
All
not
your
say that.
bullshit that you tried pulling is nonsense.
I never said that, though.
This is the problem with cult of scientism. Now let's get
But
to
I
what
never
you did.
said
Now
that,
let's
Sarah.
get to the
He's not
game
letting
you
me
played with
respond.
Clay.
Hold on.
Where
This
you
is
forget
what
that
hold on.
scientific
What we're
law.
gonna do. What we're gonna do. Hold on. What we're gonna do is later on, one of you, when you get back to your non-computer time, you're going to clip that moment of the mosquito conversation with Israel and Craig, and then we're going to clip this moment with Ben, and one of you is going to be right and one of you is going to be wrong. Yeah. Okay? Does that sound like a fun game?
I said that it was different enough. I said it was still a mosquito.
And I am officially collecting super chat bets for those who want to make their bets now, and we will tally it up tomorrow. All right, Ben, you had another point to get to, though.
Sidetracked. And again, finally, list this common ancestor. List this common
Why do I have
ancestor
to? I don't
between
have to
us
list every common
and other
ancestor.
kids. It's the species jump that you're adding in with adaption and things like that, genetic crossbreeding, all those little fun things where all those things remain in the genome. It's the cross.
And we can literally see through the fossil record where the speciation has happened.
And you're being disingenuous when you
No, I'm not being disingenuous. Please don't say that.
You are.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that we can literally see in the fossil record where speciation has happened.
The two aren't separate things. Like these guys are acknowledging the ones that remain in the genome, and then he's fighting the species jump. And
I never did.
Like you don't
I never
get it
did that.
because
You're just
trying to
making
win the
things up
debate
that
up
I've said.
top. Cool, bro. Cool. You got.
Yeah,
the
you're
debate
making
up
things up
cool,
that I've said.
bro.
Is there? Can I ask?
You're making things up that I've said. I never said those things.
Let me try to ask a question. Is there a gap between like the species linkage when they like change? Craig, is that what's going on?
Well, there's gaps everywhere, but we can, every time we find a new fossil, it creates 2 more gaps for us to find. But we can see in the fossil record where speciation has happened between so many different species.
What he can't do
and
is
he's
name the parent of
Ben
those
is
two
saying
species.
things that I never said that I said.
What he can't do is name the parent of those two species.
Yeah, because it doesn't have a name.
Insinuates that they're the same because they share some characteristics. And guess what? We have fucking.
Not every
we have
has a specific name.
Hold on. Let me make sure I understand this. So, because you two are getting frustrated with each other, so I'm trying to talk for you.
His name was Bob.
I'm getting back at this jackass for all the times he does that to all of us.
So let me understand. Let me make sure. So let's say there's like a species X, right, at the very bottom of this branch tree of some sort, right? And Craig, you're saying that there's somewhere on up the line, there was a species A and a species B, and somehow they came together and eventually created species X, or did species B turn into species X?
Every species is transitional.
And how does it transition? Like how is it going
from adaptation to environmental pressures over millions of years?
So B can just become X.
Well, it would go through all the other ones first. It wouldn't just become X. It would go from every other transition in between it.
What is like a transition is like growing an extra toe or turning
not
hands
growing an extra toe, having a mutation that is beneficial to the environmental pressures.
See, nobody denies that shit. What they deny is species jump, the thing you have yet to answer for. And
I already have answered it.
Avoiding like the plague, which I get because you can't answer it.
I did answer it though.
No, you didn't. You answered adaptation, which remains in the genome. They don't become another thing.
Yeah, they're not another thing. They're still, every species is technically still the species that it evolved from.
No,
humans are apes, but apes are also monkeys.
So there's a difference then. Why? Where was?
We've
where
got
is
new
the
traits,
parent
but we're still
that
the
two of us
species we
derived
evolved from.
Who is the common ancestor? Name the fossil.
We don't
that
have
is
the name for
common
every single common ancestor.
that we are derivative from. This
Yeah,
isn't.
we don't have the
this
name
isn't
for
that
every
fucking
common
werewolf
ancestor.
and vampire movie where he
We
bit
don't
one
have
and
the
it
name
turned
for
into a
every
wolf and
common
he bit the
ancestor. We
other
can
and
just
it
look
turned
at the
into a
fossil
bat.
records and see
Give
the
us
common
the common
ancestors.
fossil.
Yeah, if you don't want to let me talk, then there's no point responding to you.
List the common fossil between.
If you don't want to
man
let me talk and not going to
and
listen to my
ape.
answers, then there's no point me saying anything, is there, Ben?
How do we
I
know?
want one answer, and that's the common fossil. The same as I want the one answer, the common fossil between bats and men. You said there's all kinds of fossils, all kinds of jumps. The one gap makes more gaps. Like it sounds like a weird sexual thing. I don't know what the fuck you got going on, but
so
answering is not one of them.
This is not evolution. You are straw man in evolution. There isn't a single fossil labeled the parent of human and bats. That's not how evolution works. Human and bats share an earlier placental mammal ancestor. The clade is Borotheria, and fossils like the Jumera and Emeo represent early Euthian relatives. While Onycythetius show early bat evolution, asking for the parent fossil is like asking for the one exact granddad fossil of all your cousins. Cute, but biological thick and not understanding evolution. I just answered your question, but I know you're maybe not intelligent enough to understand.
The answer was the common fossil. If we're both
and I gave you a bunch of common
one
fossils,
ancestor,
and you ignored it.
And there's a common fossil. You're trying to be
answered it, and you're deciding to ignore the things that I've just said.
You don't have an answer.
I just answered you, and you're ignoring the answers.
And they said that the consensus
I just
is like
answered you,
like
and you're ignoring the answers. I just answered you, and you're ignoring the answers.
We're not getting anywhere now. So
yeah, because he refuses to listen, Sarah.
I'm trying to
being disruptive to the conversation because he would not listen to my answers,
and
he's ignored the answers that I gave him.
I'm trying to shut you both down so that I can try to ask a question. So I want to understand how you're saying like bats and men, right, have some type of common linkage, right? It's a linkage, but it's not like a guarantee, right? It's just saying, I guess what is the common linkage between the two?
The fact that we can look back in the fossil record and see that there is ancestors that are common to both of us. As I just went through a large list, I just went literally. Yeah, I was talking.
Hold on. I'm trying to disengage both of you. So
let me answer the question.
You said there's a common ancestor between both bat and man, right?
Sarah, I literally went through the list of the clade and everything, explaining where the linkages lie. I've already done that. I just did that, but Ben was talking through it because he doesn't like the answers.
No, he didn't actually give an answer. He gave a non-answer.
I literally did.
He gave a non-answer. You know how much of the human genome
I literally did, and you don't like it. That's your problem.
Do you know how much of the human genome is the same as a broccoli? 50%. Oh, Jesus, we must derive from a potato and a broccoli. That's what you're doing.
No one says we derive from potatoes and broccoli, but you've got common ancestry.
Answer. You're like, oh, look, this was bipedal. We're bipedal. We must share a common ancestor.
You're a small man in evolution. You've no idea what you're fucking talking about because you're dumb.
It's pathetic.
Yes, pathetic. You are. I agree. You're pathetic that you refuse to learn.
This is why you did this game with Clay where you forgot about scientific law, which actually has facts. You're like,
I never forget I forgot about scientific law.
That Craig sucks.
Scientific laws are.
Oh my God!
Shut up so I can fucking talk, Ben.
All right.
I said scientific laws are also part of scientific theory.
Hold on,
Sarah. I kind of want to ask Greg a question now that I actually understand more of his view. If that's okay, if Greg's got a few minutes to spare.
Ben, I think
let me respond to what Ben said first. Right? I didn't
have that. It pass. Right? Go for it, Kraut.
Right. I didn't dismiss scientific laws. I explained that scientific laws, scientific laws and facts are all part of the theory. The theory is the highest thing. Theories are higher than laws because laws are part of the theory.
The law is the highest thing, you foolish.
No, it's not. Theories are higher than laws. Laws are contained within the theory, dumbass.
The law is the theory being replicated and proven.
No, it's not.
What
the
happened.
law
That's
is
what
part of the
replication
theory.
Y'all,
you are wrong.
scientism-
Ben, you are.
scientism
Ben, shut up. You're wrong.
Forget how science
Law is,
works.
Ben, shut up. You're wrong. Law is part of a theory. Theory is
It's
higher
not.
than law. Yes, it is.
No,
Theory is
it's
higher
not.
than law.
No,
Right, there's a
it's
scientist
not.
here, PhD
You're higher
Tony.
than a fucking kite.
The
How would
PhD Tony
a-
is a scientist here, and he would agree with me that a theory is higher than a law because laws are part of the theory.
But the theory can't survive without the law, though, right?
Well,
the theory
it wouldn't be a theory if there wasn't laws
the way it
and
works
facts to
is
go in
you
the
have to
theory.
make an observation. From the observation, you have a hypothesis. Then you go about to proving independently.
There's
that
no
what
proof
you're
in science.
saying
There's no
is
such thing as scientific proof.
It's a thing that happens.
Ben,
And
there's
then
no such
when
thing
when
as
you
scientific
move
proof.
on
You've
to
no idea what you're talking
replicable,
about.
Then it becomes a law. And these dumbasses love to pretend like theory is somehow bigger than law.
It
but they
is.
can't,
Theory
because
is
most
higher
of
than
the
law.
bullshit that they tout, they can't replicate. That's
Theory
why.
is
All right.
higher than law because theory contains the law.
You're higher than a kite.
I haven't
Okay.
smoked weed in like nearly 6 months, so no. Theory
I didn't
contains
imagine
the
it was
law.
weed.
Ben, shut up
Nobody
and
I
let me
know that
talk.
smokes weed is
Ben,
that
be quiet.
fucking dumb.
Ben, shh. Theory
I was
contains
guessing that
all the
you were
laws.
chasing the dragon.
All of the laws are in the theory. Therefore, the theory is higher than the law. It's not
theory
my fault
comes
you don't
before
understand
the
science
law.
because you slept from
After
science
you've
class.
done your replication, theory becomes law. You dumb
No.
motherfucker.
No, law is in the theory. Theory is the highest.
Oh God, you guys are
May
pathetic.
I-
Scientism
may
guys are
I
pathetic.
clarify
Yeah,
something?
let PhD Tony.
All right,
because he's a
let me.
scientist.
Here's what we got to do, because I know that Israel's time has started to come up, and I've got other people who want to get into both directions. Okay, so let's do a Borg. If you had a question for Israel, go ahead and ask it, or the comment now, please.
Well, just before, can I just want the scientist in the room, PhD Tony, to answer the question: are laws part of the theory?
So yes, laws are part of the theory. Laws are descriptions of what happens. A theory is an explanation of why it happens. Both are verified by. You can shake your head all you want. I'm a professional scientist and you're not.
Professional idiot.
And
I'm a professional scientist too. I own my own fucking lab. Yeah, you might have laws in the
No, you
description
don't,
of your
Rabbi.
theory. The end
So-
result of your theory,
So
your replication becomes its own law.
You can, all right. You can talk over the professional scientist in the room, and you can assert that your ignorant, your pigment ignorant
Beaker over
comments
here.
have any bearing. You're just wrong. A theory is the highest standard of. You are confusing scientific theory with the way we use theory colloquially. A theory is colloquially we mean it's a hypothesis. It's a guess at what's going on. In science, a theory is something like the theory of gravity, the theory of relativity, the theory of germ theory.
Neither of which can be replicated. That's why they
yes,
aren't law.
and I understand.
Sound
that
like a
you have
broken
to
record.
drive me
I'm not on the
crazy.
panel yet. I don't know why
Yeah,
PhD is
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
talk
Okay,
about it.
we're all done.
Shit's
We're all
retarded.
done. You're all wrong according to Google AI overview, and that's what I'm running with right now. It says scientific laws describe what happens in nature, often expressed as a mathematical equation. Scientific theories explain why or how those phenomena happen. A theory, please tell your kids to stop. Crowd, I love kids, but not on my fucking background noise. A theory will never become law, and a law will never become theory. They are simply different tools used to understand the universe. In science, laws are not above theories. Instead, they represent two completely different types of knowledge, and one does not graduate into the other. That's what Google says. I'm going with it just because y'all keep bitching. All right. We're going to move on. Borg Emporia, to you, please. Your question for Israel or Craig or whoever, wherever you wanted to go.
Okay, hi. Had everything ready, and I lost all my mind with that. Israel, question: if God created everything, why did He go back and create the ring 4 separate times? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Israel's not there, I don't think.
Israel just jumped out on again. We'll give him just a second to come back in. I apologize.
Actually, forgot about
You gotta play
cursors.
whack-a-mole with him. You gotta time it.
While we're waiting for Israel to come back up, let me read a few super chats that came in since we're behind on those. And I know Craig is leaving soon. So Josh said, where did Brick get his 2 degrees? Just curious. Richard says evolution addresses the diversity of life on Earth, not the origin of life on Earth. Richard says, don't underestimate the survival benefits of the gay uncle. Awkward. All right. Israel is back. So, Borg, if you want to ask your question again, I apologize.
Technology, I know how it goes. Israel, if God created everything, why did he go back to the drawing board 4 separate times just to create the wing? Evolution has something called convergent evolution that explains everything perfectly.
To create the rain?
The wing. Like birds, pterosaurs, insects. W-I-N-G.
To create the winged creatures like birds?
Yeah. There's design 4 separate times.
Are you referring to the
there are
evolutionary
4
account
different
or to the
designs for
biblical?
the wings. Why are
Allow
there
me,
different designs for the wings?
Allow me to put some of this. We are back to one at a time. PhD, you got brought in because Craig asked you a question. I allowed it, but we are at one at a time for Borg and Israel back and forth.
So he's saying there are 4 different kinds of wings. Why did God make 4 different kinds of wings? I mean, why did God not make you with 2 noses? I don't know. Like, I don't. If we're talking about God, again, I'll tell you what I told the earlier caller. God determines what his creation is. I'm not here to speak for God.
Right.
I'll trust his design.
Oh, damn it. Turn your camera off for a little bit, Israel. Maybe that'll let your bandwidth kind of catch up. In this way, we don't lose you.
Can you hear me or no?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, all I said is that I don't think that it's up to us to judge existence and to project our personal judgments onto God's creation. God will always be more powerful and smarter than you. Did you hear that?
I heard it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts to that, Borg?
Got nothing. I'm just a biology major, so I know evolution. I'll take his word for his faith. Not questioning it.
No problem. All right, Kraut. You tuck the gremlins away, I assume. If you're ready, you can ask your question to Craig before he goes. He is on a very fast time limit. 10, 9. Okay.
All right. Yeah, real quick. Well, I'm in the process. If they start freaking acting up, I'll just mic up real quick and then hop on like 5 minutes later.
Sure, go ahead.
But Greg, are you under the impression that we can? Yeah. Oh, give me 5 minutes, sir.
All right. Well, Craig's probably going to be gone by then, but that's okay. All right. We'll move on to PhD Tony. Your question, I believe, was to Israel, I'm assuming. Go ahead.
Okay. 400 years ago, every serious scientist on the face of the planet thought that the Earth was about 6,000 years old and that the biblical flood was real. We abandoned that position because of the overwhelming abundance of evidence disputing that conclusion. Now, you asked, you keep on talking about geochronological techniques. Do you understand any of them? Could you describe a single geochronological technique for me?
Geochronological?
Yes.
You're referring to how to judge the chronology of the Earth?
Yes, the age of the Earth, or the age of a sample.
Yeah, again, obviously you have a lot more study regarding
My
these
question
things.
was, can you describe a single technique that is used in this? It's a yes or no question.
The answer is no, but the reason why I'll still dispute it is because I know that it's human beings who are the ones telling me these things.
Okay.
Based off of their understandings.
Okay. So do you like having petrol in your car? Do you like having the metals in your car? Do you like having the wiring that goes into your building? Do you like having minerals that are dug up by mineral companies? Because mineral exploration is a very expensive business, and in order to work out where mineral forming deposits formed, they use geochronological techniques. So the accuracy and the reliability with which geochronologists can locate these mineral bearing formations in fact underpins the success of modern society. So we have this independent verification of the reliability and the robustness of geochronological techniques and their accuracy. Do you concede that this is the case?
Well, I can see that it's obvious that through modern science, things are able to be done. There are calculations that are clearly workable. That's why I wasn't even here to dispute what is observable.
You actually called me and my colleagues corrupt earlier in the stream. So I'd like you to concede that we have independent verification that these techniques are reliable.
To be fair, I didn't say you are corrupt. I said you can be corrupt. And I do think there are instances in science where we can point to corruption.
Yes. Are there instances of corruption amongst the religious?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't get offended if you.
So should we dismiss everything that you say because there are individual religious people who are corrupt?
No, I didn't dismiss everything that science says. I just said that I think that when science
dismissing
begins,
all of geochronology on this basis, aren't you?
Well, no, you're speaking of your ability to study the geology of the earth and make momentary decisions of where to find minerals. And you're again, my objection is that you're using your modern tools and abilities to track the unknown. And when I say the unknown, I mean millions and millions of years on an earth that could have been changing and in ways that you could never account for because you don't know what could have happened. So again, I'm just saying that I think science is out of this.
That doesn't matter, sir. You can only say this thing because you don't know what you're talking about. The rates of radiometric decay are determined by the weak force, the nuclear weak force. There is no indication that can change. There's no mechanism by which it can. The cosmogenic.
I mean, I'll give you a mechanism.
Okay. Describe a mechanism by which the weak force can change.
The very fabric of reality can change to the point where your measurements of the current reality.
That's not a mechanism, is it?
On a previous existence.
By what mechanism can that occur? Describe the mechanism. Don't just say reality can be different from what it is. I'm asking for a mechanism, and you said you could give me one. What you're saying instead is reality could be different.
Do you concede?
Everybody concedes that reality could be different. The question is, what is the mechanism by which this could be affected? And if you say God, then you are begging the question, and you are inviting the conclusion that God is deceptive, because God could have given us evidence that the Earth is 6,000 years old. He could have made it look like the Earth is 6,000 years old, and he clearly didn't. And all of the scientific data that we have, amino acid racemization techniques, VAV chronologies, ice core chronologies, speleothem chronologies, magnetostratigraphy, ocean core chronologies, radiometric dating and cosmogenic exposure age dating. These are completely dendrochronology. These are completely physically distinct mechanisms that all give consistent results. So there are multiple strands of data that are all giving us these ages of millions to millions of years, millions and billions of years, and you're saying that they're all misleading. They're all designed to mesh perfectly, but to disagree, but to fundamentally not describe reality. That
so
can
again,
only
I
be the
think you might have...
can only be the result of God lying to the scientists.
Okay, so again, you might have misunderstood. At no point in this conversation did I say that I know that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. I do believe that if you trace the chronology, there was an explosion. It's even discussed in the book Darwin's Doubt, where there was an explosion of fossil records and creation at a certain point in time. And I think that's what the biblical story of the current variation of creation that we're experiencing right now is describing. So even if you were to believe that the Earth predated this most recent creation account in the Bible, that could be again from a different time and a different place, and it's not necessarily
Again, so you're speaking from absolute ignorance. We have evidence of biological carbon based on the partitioning between carbon-13 and carbon-14. We have evidence of biological carbon on Earth more than 3 billion years ago, well before the Cambrian explosion, which I think you're referring to. And the Ediacaran comes before the Cambrian. You're making these comments, sir, and you know nothing about what you're talking about. And
again,
this is no. I need to finish what I'm saying. That it would be okay if you had any idea what the hell you're talking about, but instead you had no idea. It would be like if I came in and started trying to give lessons on the Torah in your synagogue without ever having read the thing.
Okay, so again, your accusation is incorrect, because at no point have I made accusations that are outside of my depth. I'm asking you direct questions. First of all, you said, why do you believe the Earth is 6,000 years old? I never said that I believe the Earth is necessarily 6,000 years old. I also said that I said
that the Earth is definitely not billions of years old.
I didn't say that. I said you wouldn't have to come onto billions of years if you believed that God can create in the immediate moment. Also, it could be that the Earth is ancient because previous realities existed at other times. But I'm just talking about.
So you've got an unfalsifiable hypothesis, and here you are discussing science. Science science is uninterested in unfalsifiable hypothesis. If your hypothesis can shift to meet whatever data and say, oh, well, maybe it was like that, then you've got zero predictive power and you've got zero verifiability.
Again, we may be focusing on different things, but I'm saying that it is my belief that reality came about by the hand of God, and that everything that we see playing out is by the hand of God. I don't believe that reality began 6,000 years ago. I'm sure reality has been around for quite a long time. And so if the Earth has predated this current creation, however you want to frame it, again, I don't fully buy into all of, you want to like tell, oh, you're not a scientist, you don't know the things I know. Maybe, but also I don't necessarily have like full trust in what you're telling me just because you're saying it. But at the same time,
you shouldn't have trust just because one individual says this.
I don't mean just one individual. I mean even the collective.
What you should have done is gone out and looked at the scientific literature.
No, I mean even the collective consensus of scientists is not enough to convince me that that is the truth of reality.
You're using a computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again,
so there is science you are comfortable with.
No, it's not about comfort. It's about if something works and clearly is able to track.
Clearly, geochronology works.
Again,
it's how we find the minerals that went into your computer. So you turning around and saying, I'm skeptical of the science. You have the minerals that are in your computer. You have the minerals that are in your car. You have the petrol that's in your car.
Yes.
Because of geochronology.
But I'm skeptical of science's ability to use these chronological observations in the current time and stretch that across millions of years and claim to know what happened. That was my argument.
Then you're rejecting the science. And you're cherry picking exactly which ones you're willing to listen to.
Yeah, how about the ones that are observable?
How
about the ones that are observable and can be demonstrated here? To use the scientific reasoning, show me something that's observable.
Yes, geochronology is a robust scientific result that gives us reliable and repeatable access to minerals, that gives us access to
yet the assumption here is that on the basis of that chronology you can determine what has happened on Earth for millions of years. That is my objection. That's an assumption.
That's exactly what we use it for. We use it to identify when mineral bearing deposits formed and where they formed relative to one another. That is something that happened on Earth. And you are saying we can't use it to determine that because that's something that happened on Earth millions of years ago. But that's precisely what we do use it for.
And allow me to put a brief pause on your conversation with Israel, Tony. Craig would like to make his exit and give everyone his final send off. Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you for having me on, Sarah. I really do appreciate it. Studying science is important. Don't try and talk about science if you guys don't know what you're talking about. no one on the other side here seemed to understand what a scientific theory was, which was always quite an interesting conversation. Next time there's a debate, I would really like to actually debate someone who actually takes a negative position on evolution rather than just agreeing with me and saying, but God could have done it. That'd be really interesting. I really, really do appreciate you having me on, and I just want to thank you for the interesting conversation. Thank you to all the panel here. Even if you got very angry because you didn't understand things, that's not my problem. That's more yours. But I will be going now. I need to go to bed because I've got gym in the morning, and my personal instructor gets mad at me when I don't get enough sleep. So thank you very much, and I will see you all another time.
Thank you, Craig. We love you, and we'll check in for next round.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I would love to ask PhD Tony a couple questions. I haven't really.
Well, hold on. We're gonna let Tony and Israel get back to their conversation, right, and then we'll go into full open panel mode here shortly.
So, Tony, are you saying that based off of the calculation of millions of years of migrating minerals, that's how you find minerals today?
Yes.
So you're saying you can predict over millions of years that. Based off of our prediction, millions of years ago, these minerals migrated here. Therefore, we go check, and they're right there. Is that what you're saying?
What we do is we geochemically sample provinces, and we say, okay, here's this particular geochemical signature. It tells us that it's probably in a physical proximity and age relationship. And so by mapping those out, we can tell where the precise locations where temperature and pressure were at the point where mineral formations would occur. So by doing
is that by tracking millions of years, or is that by tracking?
Yes, by tracking. In some cases, hundreds of millions of years. Yes.
In order to determine where the minerals are, it doesn't have to do with climate, or it doesn't have to do with No, so like there isn't a place where minerals are native to based off of climate or based off of where it's at in
mineral formation is in general a subsurface process. It's not universally subsurface, but it is largely a subsurface. It occurs at pressure and at temperature, and so you need the right pressure and temperature regimes. It doesn't occur at the surface. It's not related to climate.
So how do people find minerals under the ground? Because I'm sure people have been finding minerals even before modern science.
Yes, when they're near the surface, it was easy. You could wander along and you could see, look, there's gold in the rock. You don't need anything for that. Nowadays, they use a variety of exploration techniques. They use
metal detectors.
Magnetotelluric is a technique, but you need to be fairly localized in order to use it. It's not a large-scale exploration technique. Gravity is a fairly useful technique. You can fly around with gravimeters, and you can measure the gravity profiles.
I'm not hearing anything about geological chronology.
Sorry, I was in the middle of speaking. What's your question?
I just said everything you've described does not have anything to do with geological chronology.
You asked a more general question.
Well, you were saying that we know where minerals are.
If you wanted to, let me. I was explaining how we use geochronology in mineral exploration. Then you interrupted me to ask, what are the techniques we use for mineral exploration? I started giving a top-down view of the techniques we use for mineral exploration, and then you interrupted me to say this has nothing to do with geochronology. Do you want to know the role geochronology plays?
Please tell me.
Yes, okay, then the role that it plays is if you've got a reasonably well-defined province, or you've started digging in a particular area, and you get geochemical signatures. Because a lot of these minerals form near one another. Silver and copper, for instance, are often in some sort of relationship to one another. But they form at very different pressure and temperature regimes. So you can say, look, this formed here at this time, So we're looking for a regime of this age and this pressure and temperature distribution. So we should go over and dig over there, because that's where, if our horizon slants at this angle, we can say, okay, it's probably over here and at that depth. So you can use the geochronological techniques in the mapping. But what I like is the very basis of your questioning, because this training actually takes 5 years, right? It takes 5 years for you to get enough scientific training to actually fully understand how geochronological mapping works. And you're trying to do this gotcha moment that Tony can't explain it to you in a post-debate. This isn't even my speciality. I'm not a geochronologist. I use geochronological techniques. I'm a geophysicist. I can tell you about how gravity works because that's my speciality. I know enough about geochronological techniques to give you a brief summary, but I'm not a specialist in this discipline.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I don't want to interrupt you, but if that was all, essentially what you're describing is the fact that we can dig for minerals, and then we know based off of experience that there may be other minerals near there. It doesn't sound like you're employing a geochronology to do that.
Then you haven't been listening to what I said.
I was listening.
And
you said you can map.
And furthermore, sir, you just transitioned into absolute intellectual dishonesty.
Okay, I heard what you said. You said that you.
No, you didn't, sir. Or you're pretending. I answered that we use the age at which the mineral formation. We use the age of mineral formation at the site that we're at, and the potential relationship to nearby provinces in order to map where the mineral bearing deposits are found.
So you're saying
how is that not using geochronology?
So you're saying you find gold and you test the age of that gold, and if it's 10 million years old.
If we have found the gold, we don't need to do any exploration, do we?
But you're saying
if we drill at a point where we don't find the mineral, but we look at the geochemistry and the age of the sample there, and from that we can so let's step back and please don't interrupt me. At a large scale, we use gravity to say, okay, here's an interesting looking thing. It has very high density. It looks like a very high mineral forming province.
Okay, so you've discovered
let's have
the
a look
mineral.
There. So then we go in and we might do a loose. We'll probably do a seismological survey to have a look at the geological structures and see if any of those give us any pointers as to where mineral bearing formations. Because this also is a reasonably cheap, large-scale exploration technique. Drilling a hole is actually very expensive. So you don't want to just go around randomly drilling holes because it takes a lot of time and it's a very expensive thing to do. So once you've got your seismic survey, once you've got your gravity, then you can go in and you can start saying, okay, this looks like a good place to drill a hole. You'd have to be insanely lucky to hit a mineral deposit at the first attempt. So instead, you're going to find other geochemical signatures, and they will tell you, okay, there's a mineral bearing province around here somewhere. We now need to work out where it is. And geochronology and geochemistry play a role in sort of this hunt where you don't want to just go around randomly drilling because it's expensive. I mean, people used to do it, but it's expensive and it's inefficient. So we use geochronology and geochemical signatures in order to identify better places to drill and home in on where the minerals actually are.
So can I talk? So
sure.
You use a instrument to test the age
No.
of that. No. So again, you're still not really explaining where the chronology aspect comes in. You're saying we judge the geology, we judge the
My suggestion
location.
to you, sir, is that if you're really interested, go and do 5 years of a graduate
You should be able to. No, see again, that's a
Why?
deflection.
No.
You should be able to explain how how chronology plays a role in this discovery. I mean, you keep like shifting to other aspects. You're like, first we find the traces there, so which means you already discovered it manually. You discover the traces, and you say we find traces of the mineral. Now we have to go and check the Earth's crust and check the geological formations on that location to see where the best place to
Your
drill is.
listening comprehension is absolutely fucking terrible. We don't find the mineral. We find geochemical traces.
Yeah,
that are related.
I literally said that, traces
How
of the
about
mineral.
you? This is why you don't understand what I'm saying.
Why?
Is the mineral the same as the geochemical something? Is that, or are you guys saying the same thing there?
Let's suppose that we're looking for gold. Okay. Let's suppose that we're looking for gold. Let's make this a concrete example. So, during mineral formation, where gold veins form, other chemicals are ejected, right?
Ejected. Is that what you said? Ejected.
Yes, ejected. Okay. There is a partitioning. The chemicals separate out, and they, there's high pressure, high temperature. Things melt, and then they solidify as the pressure and temperature regime cools. But because the different elements have different responses to pressure and temperature, they're partitioned out. And so there'll be areas where there's a lot of gold because all of the gold partitioned out at the same time. So when we look at other, when we drill a core and we look in the core, we will find other elements and other minerals that are not gold, that do not bear a relationship to gold. But we know that they separate out from gold at particular points during mineral formation. And so from looking at the age and the composition of these, this will tell us this will give us information on where and at what depth we should be looking for the gold-bearing deposit. Does that make it any clearer?
So you follow the breadcrumbs to get to the loaf.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
That's pretty easy to understand.
And you're saying that you use chronology in order to know how much of a certain mineral has developed there.
Well, so the chronology. So you combine the geochronological data with your knowledge of the geological structure. So you say, okay, we know that this thing partitioned from the gold, and it formed about 400 million years ago, and below it there's a layer that formed about 350 million years ago. Okay, those two, sorry, above it 350 million years ago. So that combination of data gives us some indication of where of sort of the angle that we need to follow to get to that very specific depth and location where the gold is going to be.
Okay, I understand your point. I guess you're saying that chronology plays a role in understanding where and how deep minerals are located or how much is there. So look, I see your point, and you're saying that these things are you can demonstrate how the chronology is correct in terms of discovering minerals. As you said, this is not my field. I'm not trying to dispute scientific findings in all respects or to say that they have no validity ever. My only point was then, to say that exactly what happened on Earth for millions of years is my main issue, because even if Earth has been around for millions of years, I don't think we know exactly what has happened. And I don't think we know exactly how things happen. And I don't think we know that human beings, for example, are just evolved from the same ancestor as apes, or that human beings and bats evolved from the same ancestor. When it comes to projecting that into the past by millions of years, especially with relationship to species and all that, it definitely does start to turn into a guessing game and assumptions and leaps and
everything's a guessing game. And I want to the reason I wanted to interject is that you keep on using the word exactly. Scientists will rarely ever use the word exactly. We have confidence in our conclusions that is proportional to the evidence that supports those conclusions. But we don't ever say, or we shouldn't ever say, that we are 100% certain that that's what happened. It is entirely possible that the creationist narrative is correct, that each of these species in the fossil record was independently created by an omnipotent creator.
Boom, there you go.
That is not a hypothesis that we can exclude, but it is scientifically uninteresting in that we can't falsify it. There's nothing we could find.
It's uninteresting because
can I ask a question
God.
then?
Yeah.
Would you say that you like in your position as a scientist, do you actively try to take the theory of God and prove it, or do you actively try to disprove it?
The God is a very separate thing. Like I became an atheist about 10 years ago, and I'm not a young man. So for 30 years, I was a professional scientist and a Christian. So not of Israel's faith, but I definitely believed in a God. Now, I don't think that science and religion are trying to answer the same questions. I'm not trying to argue that anybody should abandon their religious convictions. I'm suggesting that the evidence we have is not consistent with a biblical interpretation with a literal biblical interpretation. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to falsify. I'm not trying to say that nobody should be Jewish. I'm not trying to say nobody should be Christian.
But Tony, I have to say you conceded a remarkable point, which is that it is possible that the independent fossils that we find are not evolved fossils, but rather independently created. I think that's unbelievable.
It's not impossible. We can't falsify that hypothesis.
Well, again,
you can propose that, and
then it comes down to what you choose to believe. Do you choose to believe that there was no higher power that acted on existence to actually independently create species, and things just had to evolve for millions of years in order for it to happen? Or do you believe that God can act on existence and independently create these new creations? And even if there is resemblance between different things, as Benjamin said, we resemble potatoes in a lot of ways. It doesn't mean that.
But there's no. This is the thing. This is the thing that I object to, is that you're putting that forward as though it is a scientific hypothesis with any validity. It's not. If you want to believe that, go ahead and believe that. And I hope it brings you every happiness.
1 second, but you said there's literally.
But you have no right to get onto any public forum and suggest that there is any evidence supporting your hypothesis.
There's literally 1 second. From a scientific perspective, you just said there is no real validity to one theory over the other. Either God created everything independently. Well, again, you said either God created everything independently, we cannot disprove that hypothesis, or everything evolved on its own over millions of years, right? So why is your hypothesis superior to mine?
Because ours has predictive power and ours is falsifiable. Ours is very. So you could go out and you could tomorrow, nominally, you could find evidence that would falsify evolution, that would falsify the genetic our understanding of genes. You could falsify it nominally tomorrow with new findings. We are open to new data. You can't falsify the God hypothesis, so there and you can't make any predictions on its basis. All you can predict is whatever evidence you find, you found the evidence.
So in order for something to be true, it has to be falsifiable?
No. Well, in order for something to be scientifically
that's like the opposite of truth.
No, in order to be scientifically interesting, it has to be falsifiable. In order to be considered as evidence supported by the evidence, it has to be falsifiable. If any evidence cannot falsify a hypothesis, then the hypothesis is simply independent of all evidence. If nothing can falsify the hypothesis, then the hypothesis is untestable and scientifically uninteresting. It gives us no predictive power whatsoever.
I mean, you can. Why is that true? Like, if the nature of the world that God created is such, then you can study that nature as a scientist and use it for predictive power without disbelieving in a creator, or that the creator is the one that independently made these species.
Yeah, yes, but that's my point. You can believe that. The question is, as a scientist, what does the evidence support? The evidence.
It's neither here nor there.
So you can, and there are scientists of faith, right? There are scientists who are Jewish. There are scientists who are Christian. There are scientists who are Muslim. There are scientists who are Hindu. Scientists of all religious persuasions. And in order to be a good scientist, what you need to do is you need to say, okay, I'm setting aside my religious preferences, and I'm just going to approach this straightforward and just look at the data. What does the data tell me? And if I invoke God as an explanatory mechanism all the time, then that just isn't that just doesn't allow me to make any progress.
Why not? I mean, again, when we say God, we're just referring to the causality behind all of this, because you can still observe God's creation and make predictive observations without denying the origin source or the power that pushes this process forward. And by your own admission, what I'm saying about God creating species independently is not at all that's not falsifiable by science either. And if anything, like,
but it's also not predictive, sir. You seem to be misunderstanding. You seem to be misunderstanding
but you gain your predictive. I'm sorry, but you gain your predictive power by studying the existing material world, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter, as you said, who created this or how it got here, but more, can we study it and make predictive observations on the basis of that? But believing in God does not change that at all. Right?
No, but invoking God as an explanatory mechanism does. So believing in God is fine. Saying that this happens because God did it as an untestable hypothesis, well, you're abandoning the very scientific enterprise. You're suggesting that there's no naturalistic mechanism. You're suggesting, and it may well be the case that you can't find a naturalistic mechanism. That doesn't mean that God did it either. All it means is that the evidence is the evidence that we have available to us, and our ability to process that evidence is, not up to the task of providing a sound explanation.
Right.
All right. Before you continue, I want to inform the audience we are officially moving over to the Gauntlet. Of course, if you're on StreamYard, you're staying exactly where you are. You're not moving. They're going to follow us. If you are watching The Raging Tomato over on YouTube, on Kick, on X, on Twitch, on Pilled, on anything else, I am shutting those down. If you're watching The Raging Tomato on YouTube directly, it will redirect you over to the Gauntlet Debate. If you want to find us, go to YouTube, type in at the Gauntlet Debate. You will find us there at the Gauntlet Debate. I love you. We'll catch you on the other side. All right. This also means we are officially in open panel mode. So PhD, Tony, and Israel, as much as I love the back and forth between the two of you, I know everyone else wants to jump in on this conversation and yell and scream at you. So again, keep your civility among yourselves. Try